The beginning followed with the understanding that in our life, not always everything went as we wanted. The life of the main character was similar to a continuous confusion, which everything rolled at the speed of light in Tartarara. The girl pierced a small trembling. She just wanted a calm and long life, but life turned out to be more cunning. It would be great to wish to be ordinary statist. The woman was on her knees in front of the guy who was lying on the grass. She tried to wake him with hope and asked if he was in order, but he did not answer. It was a disaster. Her eyes filled with fear and anxiety. Did she really knock out the Duke of Raka Aintia? This brunette, which was now lying in front of her unconscious, was a gray cardinal and a true villain. What did she do? The Duke of Raka Aintia was supposed to conclude the main character, like a bird in a cage, so that it would not cause problems. And after that, he, being a villain, would attack the imperial family, standing at the head of the monsters. Experiences in waves covered the girl with her head. Could she say that she had just raised a black flag? She wanted to quietly escape, but at the same moment, Aisha, the younger sister of a dark-haired guy, appeared nearby. And after her, a little boy appeared, her twin brother, Delcane Aintia. He got up a little behind his sister. Children with horror noticed that their older brother did not open their eyes even after their requests. It looked like he died. The children, although they were small, but hung over a fair-haired heroine with a frightening dark shadow, obscuring the sun. The eyes of the twins expanded dangerously, and they asked in a murderously cold voice, "Did you kill our brother?" The fair-haired tried not to lose her composure, and, nervously rubbing her neck, said that there was a misunderstanding. But the younger ones did not want to listen to her. They shouted at her, called the evil saint, and said that their brother died because of her. As these kids boil, the girl's face was increasingly pale with fear and tension. She was crazy that the children were so noisy and did not give her the opportunity to finish, but their brother was still alive. All troubles in the life of a fair-haired man began with the moment when her life rolled down straight into a cliff. It all happened about an hour and a half ago. Someone called a dark-haired one by name, Maya, asking whether she was ready. The girl was respectfully called the mistress, and she herself was in a snow-white, majestic temple at the palace. But the difficulty was that the last thing the girl remembered was how she fell from the stairs. She could not understand where she was, and why all the people looked at her so strangely. Is she reborn? The priest asked Maya in order of Li, and the girl did not even immediately realize that he had turned to her. But the man made her think, because for some reason the name Maya seemed to her vaguely familiar. And then the girl dawned on where she heard him, and in whose body she ended up after she died in her world. She moved to the body of one of the heroines of the novel, The Flower of Shakira, the one she herself read before her death. Her surprise knew no bounds. She really became a secondary character in the novel? Was it possible? Quickly pulling herself together, Maya was emergency tried to understand what her heroine was going to do and where she was. The priest, without knowing it, gave a hint and asked, "Didn't she say that she would go to the prayer hall?" He reminded the girl that she promised to come there before giving her blessing, and asked if she had forgotten. Memories of the events of the novel surfaced in Maya's head. She moved on the day when Maya aroused her abilities. According to the plot, Emperor Canis should have received a blessing on the day when Maya aroused her abilities. And about a year later, Maya would have sacrificed herself by conveying her abilities to Kinesus in order to save him from death. Although she did not have time to learn from the novel what abilities she would appear, she was sure that she would die in just a year. It was insanely scary to realize that she became just a step for the protagonist, Emperor Canis. Suddenly, Maya told others that she had to admit something to them, but her desire was crossed. There was no time for this. The saint was not so simple and insisted that it was really important. Then she was allowed to speak. Putting her hand on her heart, the fair-haired person took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts, waiting for everyone to look at her. The girl's face instantly became strict, and she announced in a serious tone that she had not yet aroused her abilities. She hoped that people would immediately believe her, but one of the employees stubbornly denied the words of the saint. For some reason, the woman was sure that Maya was wrong. The woman took her hands and asked for permission to check it. The blonde froze for a moment and completely losing the speechless. What did this woman do right now? The world around seemed to froze, and both girls for a short moment lost clear outlines, obscured by a bright light flash. When the woman finished, she noticed that Maya was lying. She definitely woke up. But how did she find out? The dark-haired person dutifully bowed and said that, in connection with this fact, the girl could go to the altar right now. She was also reminded that, like the daughter of God, she should never have forgotten about elegance and nobility. Things were bad. Was it now Maya to bless Kines at all? Or after that she will get sick and die? Having delayed her salvation plan, the girl first, to take suspicions, knelt down, starting a prayer. She folded her palms in a prayer gesture, offering others to all pray to the god Tritos together. Maya herself thought that this time she would not allow fate to take her life, so it was necessary to escape from the temple. Now there was the most suitable moment, because all those present prayed with their eyes closed, but there was nobody outside the door. The fair-haired focused on this option, because it is not known when she still has such a chance to escape. Raising the hem of her dress to run more conveniently, the blonde with all her legs rushed to such a desired exit. Having noticed this, the employees felt confusion mixed with undisguised anxiety and tried to shout the saint. But the girl completely ignored their screams and rushed away from them, sparkling heels. In parting, the girl waved her hand with a joyful smile. She was clearly not going to follow the original story. Maya heard people fussing behind her, dulling her in pursuit, but she would never let herself catch. In the original story, she was not an important character and scapegoat, but now she escaped to survive. Suddenly, a magic bird appeared behind Maya, that she persuaded the girl not to make stupid things and return to the temple. The chick, overflowing with a bright blue color, said that he was a god Tritos, and Maya heard him because he awakened his strength. He noticed that over the years of sleep, the girl had puberty and asked, "Are you really running away or walking?" The bird with irony noted that the fair-haired people seemed to like to walk while they were chasing her. Maya sent him away. The farther she ran into the forest, the harder it became. She tried to mentally figure out how far she was still to run, but, having heard the screams of the clergy behind her back, she seemed to open a second wind. It was too early to relax. The girl decided to hide somewhere for a while, so she stopped at a wide trunk of a high tree. She, deprived of her last strength, leaned on a tree. The muscles were sick, like the lungs. She is so tired, as if she would die now. The bird, who called itself God, continued to circle over the girl. He asked if she thinks that the escape will change something. The girl certainly did not know the answer to this question, but I was sure that it was better to do so than to die a year later. The wagon, whose body was overflowed with blue, like a sea wave, slyly asked where Maya knew her fate. The girl was dumbfounded. Did even the local god knew that they were in the novel, and that she was not a real Maya? Trying to take away suspicions from herself, the blonde said that she just succeeded in seeing the future in some dreams. The chick stared at her in disbelief. Nevertheless, it seemed that he had believed, and said that it should be fortune tricks. God explained that he would definitely correct her soon. Maya will not die, but fall asleep with an eternal dream. She asked what's the difference. He replied that the holy body would have to fall asleep, and her soul to go to him forever, forever. God asked her, if she could wake up 100 years later, would she return to the temple at his request? She asked, "Are you really not sorry for me?" The chick replied that it was a pity, like all his children on this earth. Maya noticed that most of all, God loved Kines Khan. He replied that he was interested in children with his abilities. Poor Kines, probably, could not fall asleep now. This is all because the human body entered the kingdom of God. This was a self-exposed process. The more the guy spends energy, the more difficult it was for him to fall asleep later. God asked, "Do people have no choice in life?" What Maya was angry because she had to run away due to hopelessness. Maya also recalled that she was also the daughter of God, which the chick was very surprised, because she completely forgot about it. They discussed what a person had to be found once, that he could lull the emperor. For example, Reina Adrian. Maya suggested this girl because she was the main character of the novel, but God protested he needed Maya. The chick said that if the girl did not want to save the emperor, he should even warn him in order to save his strength. But Maya refused. While there was a gray cardinal, Raka Aintia, The emperor could not help but use all his forces. Raka even abducted the main character in the novel, because of which Hinisu had to be exhausted and defended. But whatever happened between the main characters of the novel, Maya was not going to sacrifice her life for them. God, who initially appeared in order to convince her, asked the girl to think about her choice again. This was already in earnest. The fair-haired one broke out. How much could she say that she had to return to the temple? The girl decided to teach the annoying god. She wanted him to feel a threat to his life, like her. Maya wanted to scare him and grab him so that he understood why she ran away, worried about her safety. The girl threw herself behind the chick, trying to catch him, but he was much faster and more agile, joining her. The chick was little amused by the situation. In despair, he rushed through the air from side to side, dodging tenacious hands. But at some point, he managed to quietly hide, disappearing from sight of the girl, which led her to a dead end. Maya looked around, trying to find traces of God, and accidentally noticed some color spot among thick green grass. Thinking that it was a chick that hid in the bushes, the girl attacked him, grabbing tightly with both hands. "That's just someone whom she grabbed," quietly gasped, which forced the fair-haired person to be wary and freeze. It turned out to be not a chick at all, but a high brunette, the very gray cardinal that Maya was so afraid of. The girl's reaction was a little slow, so the first thought that she had, the guy had very soft hair. She did not immediately realize that she was Raka, so she was not afraid. God noticed that she caught something strange. The chick said that if someone saw her, he would have thought that the Maya pervert obsessed with other people's hair. After that, she immediately let go of the dark-haired, and a little awkwardly asked how he felt. To her surprise, he fell on the grass and did not react at all to the surrounding factors. "He's not dead?" The girl froze, experiencing strong guilt. Really, having escaped from the temple, she immediately became a cold-blooded killer? With a tangible disappointment, the fair-haired drew attention to the fact that the territory fled. He also dared to call himself by God. The girl held out her hand to the young man's face, and with a relief realized that he was breathing, so he was alive. She did not want to think that, due to the fact that she pushed him, he could have a concussion. Suddenly, not far from children's voices were heard, which clearly quarreled because of some little things, discussing something of their own. And the next instant, these children came to Maya, already close enough to notice the brother who was lying on the grass. The fair-haired finally drew attention to the guys who were too quickly fussing, shouting that their brother died. Turning a look from his brother to the priestess, the unbearable children, of course, thought that this girl was the fault of what happened to Rach. She tried to besiege the children and explain that there was a misunderstanding, and they raised panic from scratch. But the Gemini did not want to listen to her. They said that they had come to the forest for the flowers of Shakira, and the priestess attacked them. The fair-haired did not quite understand why the children were so focused on death, and explained that their brother was not dead. But it was more difficult to convince stubborn children than she thought. Covered by anger, the guys decided to kill her as revenge. Maya asked the children not to make nonsense. Is Aisha, the younger sister of Raka, could use black magic? In an attempt to enlighten the younger ones and save her life, the saint said that she could save their brother if they stop. Aisha told the girl to stop lying to them because she felt that this was only a trick, but her brother intervened in their conversation. The twins said that the words of a girl may be true. The girl, who had already begun to conjure, was unhappy. The fair-haired almost cried with happiness. Thank God that at least Delcane remained calm and listened to her. The sister asked the brunette as a priestess could save their brother, and he replied that the girl was an adult and educated person. He recalled how the older brother told them that only once in his life an adult could save someone from death. As an example, Delcane cited a situation when their brother saved Puiri, whom they raised. But this did not quite convince Aisha, because Puiri, after salvation, became completely strange, so the priestess could not spend her. Maya knew that their pet has changed due to the use of Rach of dark magic. The children were so naive and believed in everything. Delcane, convinced that his brother was dead, although it was not so, persuaded his sister, thinking that it was the only one to save him. Aisha was unhappy that her brother constantly shifted to her and interfered with merits to punish the evil priestess. Nevertheless, after a few moments of silence, Aisha seriously and slightly turned to the fair-haired. The girl ordered her to save their brother, as the twin wanted. Just in case, she clarified exactly whether the priestess is capable of it. The girl confirmed, but after that she was clearly made to understand that if suddenly nothing happens, then they would kill her. Maya was little frightened by the threats of the guys, because she was confident in herself, so she offered to start moving to another place. She thought that Rocky would need some time to wake up, and hoped that everything would be in order with him. After some time, the Trinity, along with the adopted brother in her arms, reached a small wooden house. The children held a priestess in the house, all three grunts from the fact that Raka was too heavy for them. You need to put it on the bed. Absolutely exhausted, Maya suggested that the youngest lay Raka so far on the floor and rest a little. Aisha almost agreed, but her brother shouted at her, saying that she should not obey this evil priestess. Therefore, without taking breaks, the Trinity made the last jerk to the bedroom, and all together laid the young man in bed. Maya scratched his head and sighed heavily. They barely dragged the guy home, but still could do it. By the way, Raka's body turned out to be much stronger than she thought initially, which was very curious for the saint. While the girl stood and talked about something, the children talked among themselves, and then suddenly turned to May. Aisha, clearly very frightened, begged the fair, haired to save their brother. These children sometimes really scared the priestess with their behavior. Delcane sternly told his sister that it was not worth rushing the fair-haired. Otherwise, she would die from fear faster than Raka would save. Maya noticed that it was a really difficult task, so she invited the children to take a short break. To herself, the blonde noticed that her brother often controlled Aisha, so she should stay closer to him. Maya did not know how to hide her cunning thoughts, which alerted the children, because she looked like a real villain. As a result, the girl said that she would still try to revive their brother, but it is quite possible that she will need their help. In the younger's head, there were suspicions of this plan, because their older brother saved Query alone. But Maya quickly found what to answer, saying that Raka was simply very capable. Children were filled with pride and enthusiasm. Children literally shone with joy. And suddenly, the blonde felt how strong the aura had an aura in children. It was black magic. Nevertheless, the girl managed to inspire confidence in the children, so they willingly agreed to help her than they could. At first, Maya asked them in whose house they were. The kids of the Aintia family would never live in such a hut. Delcane explained to the girl that they did not live here. Raka used this house during the search for Shakira flowers. The Shakira flower was named after the woman who opened him, Shakira. He was widely known for his soothing action. It was mainly used by Emperor Kines, whose condition was unstable due to divine power. Maya understood why the Emperor flower, but could not imagine why he could need the Duke. The girl began to give instructions to the children. At first, she asked Delcane to pour a little water into the basin and bring her a towel. The boy immediately rushed with enthusiasm to fulfill the request, and his sister frowned after him. She asked the priestess what task she prepared for her. The fair-haired explained that now she just had nothing to ask Aisha. The next moment, the girl suddenly seemed suspicious that Maya showed zeal in the salvation of her brother. Only now the priestess thought about the fact that Raka could well kill her when he woke up. She urgently needed to find a weapon. The fair, haired very ambiguously, said that she actually wanted to ask the younger one very important. The saint leaned closer to the girl, quietly whispering her request to her ear, adding them to the persuasion of mystery. It turns out that Maya asked the girl to bring her a pan, and she was very surprised, not understanding why this was needed. The girl decided to explain her position through what she reminded the youngest of the history of the salvation of their pet, with her brother. She said that, supposedly, adults had to conduct a ritual for this, and each person had different tools for this. No matter how strange it seemed, her instrument was a pan, but only Aisha had to keep it a secret. The girl thought for a while, rethinking everything that was said to the elder in her defense. She thought that if all this is true, then the girl had the opportunity to save her life when she grows up. Ultimately, the brunette believed and agreed. So happy, Maya sent her to the kitchen behind the pan. Aisha left the room, closing the door behind her, and then the fair-haired finally remained in the room almost alone. She sat on the nearest chair and wiped sweat from her forehead. During all this time, she was too nervous. Her body was almost dead. The girl was able to take advantage of the free minute and allow the say to exhale. But soon Rock again attracted her attention. She thought that, and if she really had to use a frying pan for self-defense. But if after this Raka had fainted again, then the chances that he would kill her in the future would only become more. The girl tried to reassure herself, and taking care of sleeping Raka, did not notice how quickly the day flew. The children fell asleep early enough, taking their sleeping place in the next room. They were also very tired in the day. Raka was still calmly lying on the bed. So far he has not come to his senses for the whole day. Maya watched this family, just in case, armed with a frying pan, so that in which case not to get into trouble. Suddenly, her gaze fell on the closed window, which was in the room where the older brother of Antia was just resting. Just in case, Maya decided to open this window. A refreshing night coolness immediately slipped into the room, falling into the curtains. The window has now become for a priestess in an additional way to escape, if suddenly something goes wrong. She could not have time to the door. It was quite difficult to look after a person, completely unaware of what kind of reaction to her would turn out to be. In any case, if the mysterious Duke tried to kill her, she could now hit him with a frying pan and hide. She stood with a frying pan in her hands above the unfortunate guy, thinking about something of her own, as if he could wake up at any second. Suddenly, the girl heard a thin voice behind her back, which scaredly shouted to her, "Maya, you can't!" It flew to her by God Tritos. He ordered her to quit the weapon immediately because he thought that she had attempted to rack. The girl with a threatening whisper begged the chick to shut up because he was mistaken and could now wake up Aintia's family. He reassured her and said that only Maya could hear his voice. Of course, who would dare to hear the voice of God? This fact pleased the priestess, because this meant that then she could calmly ignore the request of the chick. He again began to say that she made a mistake, trying to kill a frying man of a living person. She explained that she was not going to kill the Duke at all. She needed a frying pan only to survive. God suddenly became more serious. He said that if she wants to knock the guy off his feet, then he could well die. Maya did not believe him. The chick did not know why the girl was so obsessed with her life, but she should have stopped. Once again, she had to listen to the Lord's requests to return to the temple, because this was her fate. One cannot resist this. Like any other person, the girl did not want to accept the fact that she was destined to die a year later. She already died in her past life, in an instant, having lost everything she had, so she understood the price of her life given to her. Maya was unshakable. If her fate was prescribed so as to die in a year, then the girl intended to change this. Tritos, who had no longer left, eventually surrendered, but asked Maya to remove the pan to the side. God vowed that he would take responsibility and the girl would not die, but she poorly believed in a sharp change in his position. Nevertheless, the chick inspired her confidence, so the priestess agreed to these conditions and reluctantly lowered the frying pan. She would like to know why Tritus dissuaded her like that. And is one oath enough with such an aggressive position? She looked at the sleeping guy and thoughtfully noted that God, obviously, had very much cared for Rake. Tritus could not disagree. Raka was indispensable, but the girl did not understand this. The brunette was a villain. Did God really know that they were in the novel? Or was Raka important just because the main antagonist? Perhaps only with the policies of the villain, the Rhine and Keenis Khan could have a deeper relationship. In any case, a few days later, the whole story with the Antia family will cease to have at least some meaning in her life. The rest of the night passed quite calmly. Maya sat on Raka until she herself fell asleep on the edge of his bed. Tritos remained in the hut until the morning to follow that everything would be in order, and the course of the story was not disturbed even more. He sincerely sat on the windowsill and thought that he had not come to life at all, that Maya would be such a person. As far as he remembered, she was a very delicate and shy child. For some time he was worried that she was so innocent, but this was enough for her physical abilities to exceed others. She had to return to him at 25. He thought that the foresight that her fortune demonstrated was very shocking, but he spoke to stay away from this. But now the girl has become aggressive and had a clear goal in life. Moreover, the threads of fate around her became confusing, much more tangled than ordinary people. Especially, her thread of fate was intertwined with the fate of Rach. But the Duke was the person who used black magic. Since Tritos could not influence the changes that had already begun to happen, he was interested to know what would happen next. The first person in the house, who woke up that morning, became the Duke, slightly lazily opening the eyelids. His head was sick enough, and he tried to understand what only happened to him and why he was lying at his home. On the edge of his bed, he noticed a girl who was sleeping peacefully, sitting on a chair and clouding on his bed with his hands. Scraps of memories told Brunette that it was the same girl who grabbed his hair and threw it to the ground. The guy's gaze was immediately filled with anger, and the dark aura finished his figure. Should he kill her now? How this blonde generally dared to grab his hair, and as if it were not enough, and also push him to the ground. He was a tribute to the defenseless woman, reflecting on how to kill her. Maybe just strangle? And when the pale palm almost reached for the bright curls of the sleeping, the guy pulled himself, thinking about something. Suddenly, he wondered why, before losing consciousness, he did not react to such impudence. A fragile neck, ready to break from one of its movement, and a pale complexion. The girl looked very vulnerable. And then the young man remembered that at the moment when the fair-haired grabbed his head, he felt something strange. For some reason, at the same moment, he felt terrible drowsiness, and the fact that his body was at his limit. This feeling seemed familiar to him. After black magic entered his body, each time closing his eyes, he heard crying. However, at that moment, when he was sleeping, his hands with a fair-haired man, complete silence arose around him, and he did not feel pain. His breath caught his breath. The guy whispered quietly and thoughtfully out loud, "Shakira flower." The effect of her hands had the same influence on the young man as the Shakira flower. They reassured, allowed to fall asleep peacefully. He could not understand why a person could have the same influence as the flower that he was constantly looking for. The young man heard the girl laughed quietly in her dream. She lay on his bed and laughed, completely fearless. The Duke decided to postpone her murder for a while, but muttered quietly, "Walk plenty, it may be your last time." Raka noticed that any touch to this woman caused him weakness. He never heard of such an ability. Maybe he was just sleepy, and therefore it seemed to him that. Throwing away the thoughts of this, the brunette decided to go to check the twins. But as soon as he got out of bed, he found that for some reason, a large frying pan was lying under his feet. This surprised him somewhat. Are Aisha and Delkin played and brought her to this room? The guy did not attach any importance to this and went to the twin room, but they immediately attacked him as soon as he entered. Raka dodged the stream of black magic and reminded Aisha that it was worth attacking only after she became convinced that it was an enemy. However, he could only praise his younger sister for her skills and a quick response to potential danger. The girl crouched on the bed, joyfully meeting her older brother, who was completely not expecting to see him in the doorway. She immediately began to joy her twin, notifying him that their brother is still alive. Aisha said that this evil priestess still saved their brother, but Delcane did not doubt Maya. The children began to ask the elder about his well-being, but Raka wanted to quickly find out from them at all. But the guys could not concentrate on his questions, asking a million of their own, rejoicing in his return. Children also talked about Puiri, who was a devil in the form of a squirrel, which he gave Delcane for his birthday. Once she was on the verge of death, and Raka revived her with the help of black magic, which had some consequences due to risk. The young man tried in every possible way to hide it from his brother, telling the children a bike that adults could heal people and animals. The children were afraid that his brother would become strange, like Puiri. But the evil priestess saved him, and Raka was completely healthy. The Duke, who does not quite understand what salvation of the priestess they talk about, specified whether they mean a woman in his room. The Gemini confirmed and talked about how they helped the girl engage in saving her older brother. Delcane told how he helped, and Aisha said that her part of the help is the secret that she had to keep. But since the brother for children was always an exception to all the rules, Aisha admitted that Maya asked her to bring a frying pan. The priestess told the girl that she had to commit a sacred ritual in order to save Raku, so Aisha obeyed. Looking at the pan in his hand, the Duke was thinking about why it could need a fair-haired man. Maybe the blonde wanted to prepare something so that his younger ones died from food poisoning? Maybe she is a killer? But the guy quickly raped this option, coming to the conclusion that the Mayan killer was somewhat stupid. The Duke had many enemies, so the sudden appearance of a girl could also be due to personal hostility. But this option is unlikely to fit. He saw a fair-haired woman for the first time in his life. It was all strange, to be honest. Well, there were not many exits from this situation, so the brunette decided to wait and watch the woman. Some time passed, and the priestess also woke up, lingeringly yawning after a long, relaxing dream. She immediately noticed that Raka apparently had already come to his senses, since he was not in bed and the room was empty. And if you look like this, then the blonde was even intact and safe. Raka did not even kill her. She even had suspicions that Maya could still die, and she again reborn. But that was not so. In the corner of the room, the girl noticed an old dirty mirror, which obviously had not been used for a very long time. Nevertheless, this did not prevent Maya from seeing in the reflection of the mirrors the same blonde hair and blue eyes that he was used to. She touched her cheeks with her hands and finally became convinced that she was still inside the novel, in the body of Maya. The tension was subsided due to fear for her life, and Maya even woke up with her appetite. She really wanted to eat something as soon as possible. The girl went to the kitchen to check what could be taken to eat and find out how to cook in this world in general. But as soon as she opened the door that she would lead her out of the room, the fair-haired woman came across an equally surprised brunette. Raka studied her with an attentive look, without saying a single extra word. The girl's gaze clung to the fact that in his hand, the young man squeezed her frying pan, and she could not understand why. Yes, and the pan has now become more clean than yesterday. The blonde, awkwardly shifting, noticed that Raka slept. The guy answered her quite coldly that it was so, and also wished Maya good morning, as if nothing had happened. The blonde decided to first raise the topic of what happened, and apologized for grabbing the guy yesterday by the hair. The guy, allegedly misunderstood, asked what happened. She said that she accidentally grabbed his hair and pushed it away. Despite the fact that the Duke did not do anything frightening, his gaze and tone were frightening. He recalled something like that. She guiltily mentioned that she was sorry, and he warned that if Maya once again makes such a mistake, he would go to the next world. After that, he asked whether her apologies ended on these words, or perhaps there was something else. The girl hesitated. Should she agree and end the conversation on this or not? Or did she still admit that she wanted to slap him with a frying pan on the head, worried about her life? At that moment, children entered the room. They complained that they did not want breakfast soup again, and were also surprised that the priestess is still here. The girl greeted the guys cute and wished them good morning, switching her attention from the Duke to the children. Maya already managed to think that the children would be glad to see her, but Aisha was indignant that the girl had not left. However, it did not upset the fair-haired. She asked hopefully, did this mean that she could go home? Without waiting for an answer, the girl waved her hand in parting and rushed towards the exit, hoping that she looked natural. But at the moment when the priestess was already in the doorway, she was suddenly stopped and called back. Raka asked her whether there were some other people from the temple here, except for her. If you think about it, then she was not a priestess, although everyone considered her one. The blonde replied that no, here she is only. The young man suddenly handed over a fair-haired frying pan, and she accepted incomprehensibly. The guy asked, wasn't she going to cook something? He even washed the pan specifically for her. Frankly, it was difficult for her to imagine a villain who stood in front of the sink and washed a frying pan. Nevertheless, it was so. And the Duke expected that the fair-haired person would fulfill his request. He bent closer to the girl. Raka, confident that her cunning plan was unraveled, said quietly that he was sorry if Maya wanted to poison his children. This time, he was going to pretend that he knew nothing, but next time, Maya should have prepared for the consequences. The girl froze in place. She had no idea what kind of food poisoning and murders generally told her the Duke. Without saying anything more on this topic, the brunette indicated to her in the corner of the kitchen and said that the blonde could start cooking there. It was difficult for the girl to understand whether this villain really wanted her to prepare something for them. In the kitchen, the fair-haired found only 3 ingredients: carrots, onions, and potatoes. She decided to cook from what was. Maya looked around, plunging into her thoughts. Well, since she was asked to do this, she had no choice. Perhaps if she could prepare what children will like, then the Duke could finally forgive her. The fair-haired had to rely on his 6 years of experience alone and come up with a suitable dish. She did not have many options, so the idea overtook her head quickly, and she decided to cling to it. Some time passed, and there were already several plates on the table, the food in which it smelled quite tasty. Children looked at the table with surprise, because they hadn't eaten this before. But the fact that these were cooked vegetables were not impressed. Maya, convinced that the taste of fried potatoes, onions, and carrots would not be like that of ordinary vegetables, and asked to try. The girl never in her life saw someone who would not like fried potatoes and deep fruit, so she was not afraid for the reaction. Aisha refused to eat due to the fact that she did not like vegetables, so the first to decide to try the food of Delcane. But the elder brother immediately took the plate from the boy, asking him to wait a bit. Apparently, the Duke still did not fully trust the fair-haired man, so he told the youngest that he himself would try the prepared. He decided that it would be better and safest. Specifically clarifying Lee Maya also considers Maya as well. She was surprised that he was so tense. He saw her cooking. The blonde assured him that the food was not poisoned. The gray cardinal was much more incredulous than she expected. Nevertheless, he tried her potatoes, and after he ate one spoonful of dishes, I tried a few more. Then Delcane asked him, "Everything is fine." The guy replied that the dish turned out to be quite good, and after that, Maya was finally able to exhale with relief. Delcane also said that it was very tasty. The girl had no doubt that fried potatoes were a win-win option. Aisha asked his brother whether he really liked food, and he replied that his sister was also obliged to try. Still referring to the dish a little wary, the girl still tried a small piece. She thought about something for her few seconds, and then suddenly got up from the table, turning to the priestess. To universal surprise, Aisha was so impressed by the priestess that she said she hires her to work and invites her home. Raka could not help but react to such bold requests of his sister, so he asked the blonde to move away and talk to him. The elders went out into the street, and then Raka asked the girl if she had been added to children's food. The girl could not understand why the guy had such doubts, but for some reason, the Duke thought that she had done something with food. The blonde, for a second, in doubt, replied that she did nothing like that. The guy explained to her that Aisha never recognized people next to her, but for some reason, she suddenly changed. The girl suggested that the girl really liked the potatoes, and she generally heard for the first time about Aisha's detachment. The young man stood his ground and stated that if the fair-haired man had not mixed up anything, his sister would never have offered this. Maya was infuriated what the guy asked her about it. Why, in case of doubt, do not ask Aisha herself about her choice, despite the fact that the brunette considered everything that was happening very suspicious. He informed that Maya would go to the castle with them. She was stupefied in surprise. The girl tried to stop him, but the guy asked why she argued. Maya decided for herself that it was not worth contacting the main characters of the novel, even if it was Raka. She could not be sure that she would not be killed, so she lied that she should look after her younger ones. Only this excuse did not scare the brunette at all, because he said that her relatives could also go. Then the fair-haired suddenly said that she had a very jealous husband who simply would not let her work on Raka. He noticed something was wrong, because the saints could not marry, and the girl resourcefully replied that she was not a saint at all. The guy was not so simple to deceive. He knew that besides saints, no one else went in white clothes. Maya tried to convince him that she just liked this clothing, but the Duke did not go to this lies. The girl circled and began to show that her dress is very comfortable, and that's why she wore it. She was not a saint. It was worth admitting that the blonde was a little carried away by her lies, because she began to look very ridiculous, circling. The girl was so trying not to leave the image that she accidentally broke the dress in which she was. Raka, having decided to believe in the girl's words that she was not a saint, noticed that then she has a unique taste. With one hand, the fair-haired person held her dress on the side, where the seam spread. She realized that she clearly crossed the line. She continued to lie that her husband and younger were now closer to the north, about the hour walk from here. Hour of walking. It was too long, so it is unlikely that the Duke would have decided to go along the specified route and check its words. She was delighted, noticing the guy's confusion, thinking that she had finally overcame a critical moment. But then Raka said that, as far as he knew, To the north of here, there were only mountains. The blonde quickly recovered, saying that she had the west. But in the west, too, there were only mountains. Raka told her that the only populated cradle that was from them in the clock was in the east. Maya grabbed onto this hint and confirmed that she was from there, just bewildered, and therefore said incorrectly. The guy calmly admitted that he said a lie. The village was in the south. So the girl lied to him unscrupulously about everything. Noticing how the brunette became angry with her lies, only one thought appeared in the girl's head. It was necessary to run. Raka smiled insidiously, clutching a frightened girl against the wall, and asked, "And where will you run away?" She tried to calm down, and honestly said that she would not run away if he moved away from her, honestly. Instead of fulfilling the request, the young man continued to hang over her. How can he believe her if she lied to him? The girl tried to assure him that not this time, but Raka was sure that she lied to him even now. Mai was difficult to understand. Why then to the dark-haired man to take her at all, if he did not even believe her? The priestess asked if they could agree if she calls him her name. She was going to use the forces of the territory. Her name was not serious, but the girl simply had no other choice. The guy stepped back a little, recovering. He really did not know her name, but really wanted to find out. Initially, she wanted to answer the truth. But if Maya said her name, he would immediately understand that she was a saint. Therefore, in order not to arise unnecessary suspicions, she said that her name was Mimir, but she had no name. The guy frowned and seriously asked the girl, "True, no, or you just don't want to speak?" The blonde honestly admitted that she really had no name. She did not even know who her parents were. Maya's personal life was never disclosed in the novel, since she was just a secondary heroine. The book was dedicated to the main character, Kinesu, so the girl really did not know anything about her current relatives. If Maya once died, then no one would have been doing, because the saint was just a crowd in this story. Perhaps she would be happier, born with another fate, or at least not with such death as her. The young man noticed that, it seems, speaking about the parents of the fair-haired, nevertheless told the pure truth. The priestess could not but rejoice that the young man's voice after this statement became noticeably softer and calmer. She suggested that perhaps, in the magic of rock, there was something like a lies detector who allowed to notice a lie. Perhaps she should have learned dark magic. It could help her earn a lot of money. The young man suddenly frowned again and was alert. He asked coldly, "What just happened in your eyes?" She scaredly asked Raka what was wrong. Maybe he also thought about earnings on his magic? The dark aura around the dark-haired began to thicken. He said that her eyes were strange for a moment. The guy could not get rid of the thought that somewhere he had already seen this vile gaze that he flickered in her eyes. The guy's dark eyes became frighteningly dangerous, and his eyes seemed to be sharp. A herbal of goosebumps ran along the girl's skin. She threw off her scaredly and asked the guy to return to the discussion from which they started. The young man asked if the girl herself knew his name. She replied that yes, he was the Duke of Raka Aintia, and she also knew that he was the owner of terrifying black magic, but so far she could not talk about it. The brunette noticed that she must have been told by the unified name of the Gemini. She confirmed, saying that they were very close. Raka asked as soon as the girl managed to do this. She evasively replied that there were always ways to find a common language. He thought for a while and said that the girl would have approached the role of a nanny for the twins. Their last nanny quit. Maya, without thinking, replied that it was good. The guy, not quite understanding her, asked what she said. The blonde hastened to correct and lied that she was probably distracted and said not what she was thinking about. An awkward silence was hanging between them. The girl was embarrassed and nervous, and the Duke did not understand how to relate to the non-Znojkok. The young man repeated his words that he wanted Mimira, that is, Maya, became the nanny of Delcane and Aisha. He never saw someone to cope with the twins as also good, although he still did not fully trust her. In addition, Aisha herself told them to everything that Maya would like to hire, so he could not refuse his sister in this pleasure. He thoughtfully said that he would ask his servant to look after the girl, while she will work, so as not to worry. The blonde thanked for the invitation, but reminded that she could not go to the castle. She should stay here. The brunette, as if by chance, noticed that the salary of the nanny was 500 cores, but Maya said that she would not lead to this. The guy thought, saying that he understood. The blonde thought that they would finish the conversation on this, but it wasn't there. The young man began to increase the bar of the salary, and the more the girl refused, the more the amount became. When Raka reached the mark of 900 pinks, Maya still had to think about this proposal and shut up. Yes, with such a salary, a fair-haired man could buy everything she needed to move to another country. Noticing that the girl was thinking, Ranka raised the salary of even 1,000 churks, and then she finally agreed. For 6,000 Kirchhoff, one could safely live all his life, so she should have worked out with the guy for only 6 months. Perhaps, working as a nanny, she could not even give Raquel and the main character to meet, thereby saving Canes. The guy found funny that the saint let out for money, and she was so easy to break down on a deal. Maya modestly replied that she did not say that she would be a nanny of the guys because of money. She had her own goals. After some time, the elders returned to the house. Raka's mood was good, so he laughed loudly. The last time he specified with Maya whether she was really ready to become a nanny of children for 1,000 pinks per month. She confirmed and, offendedly pouting her lips, asked him to promise that he would not kill her during this time. The girl decided to admit to her new acquaintance that in fact her life was threatened now, and she was in danger. In fact, she was threatened by the Emperor and Raka, especially the Duke, who in the novel killed everyone who interfered with him, but Maya could not tell him about it. Then the dark-haired man suggested that the girl could be afraid of Aisha's threats. She could understand why the Duke thought so, but nevertheless, he did not understand everything completely correctly. The young man suggested that Maya wanted to kill the twins, and therefore they began to threaten her. She objected. For some reason, due to how often the guy assumed something like that, she felt like the most terrible person in the world. Suddenly, interrupting their conversation, Aisha flew into the room, slamming the door. She wanted to know what the elders talked about in private. Due to the fact that the door opened sharply, hitting a saint, she could not resist and accidentally fell on Raka. But this was not the end, because after that, the girl also stumbled, leaning her body on the young man even stronger. They at all could not maintain balance, and together fell to the floor. Maya turned out to be his back on the floor, and the Duke hung right above her. Suddenly, he felt a familiar smell from the girl. Blag and frightened at the same time, the fair-haired tried to remove the guy from her, asking if everything was fine. His lilac eyes sparkled with a dangerous flame, and he asked the blonde not to push him away. The guy could not understand why, suddenly, because of their proximity, he felt so good. He helped the girl get to her feet, and having acquired her by the waist, suddenly said that he really liked her. The embarrassed children who stood in the doorway were all red, feeling terrible awkwardness and surprise. Delkina asked her sister if she thought, too, that this was an adult relationship. She agreed embarrassedly. Maya immediately pushed the brunette away from herself, no less blushing because the children did not interpret the situation so much. Delkane joyfully cried out that now the priestess was their relative, and Aisha said to not carry nonsense. The boy recalled that her sister said that she liked the saint. She did not object, but said that kinship is different. The children began to argue about whether the girl worthy to marry their brother and whether it was their fate. Aisha got angry and told his brother that he said that no one could save them, but Delkane changed his opinion. The children continued their verbal quail, and, looking at this, Maya decided that it was not the time to inactive. The girl wanted to come closer to the guys and calm them down, but she felt Raka leaning on her. Really fell asleep? Delkane, meanwhile, proved to her sister that she was older, and therefore she had to obey him, although she was only a minute older. Realizing that she had no chance to get closer, the fair-haired supported Raka with her hands, and she screamed to stop the children. Only the Gemini did not hear her at all. They were too busy with their quarrel and almost to tear their hair to each other. Maya and Irony noted that the dogs barking each other right now, and the big dog fell asleep right on her. The saint made another attempt to dissect the dark-haired, and this time he finally woke up. The girl was confused by the guy's sweet smile. It was strange. There was a feeling that Raka was bewitched. Maya hurriedly apologized for naming his name, trying to attract attention, but he said that she could continue. He admitted that he would like, in the future, the girl would not stop turning to him by name. The fair-haired reminded him that it was worth stopping the fight of the twins, and he answered lazily, "All children grow in fights." Delkan grabbed Aisha by the hair, which was very angry, but he did it because his sister grabbed his first. Seeing that the room was very rapidly filled with black magic, the frightened Maya asked the Duke to intervene. He seemed to notice anything around, except for the girl. Maybe he really got stuck. What was wrong with him? Aisha magic for a second gained more and more revolutions, and, unable to stand it, the girl sent a clot of magic right in Delcane. He managed to dodge, and instead of him, the magic headed towards the elders. Raka reacted instantly and stopped the blow. The stream of dark energy rejected the Duke from the palm of the hand and headed for the other part of the room, exploding. This attack is even a wooden floor, because of which the older brother was very dissatisfied with the behavior of his sister. Feeling that Aisha could fly now, Delcana stood up for his sister, taking all the blame for what had happened. Raka pulled himself together and told his sister that she could be punished for using black magic. The guy always warned the youngest that it was allowed to use magic only if her life was threatened by a stranger. Aisha tried to explain to him why she had flared up, saying that Delcane thought that his brother and priestess would be getting used. The girl, in embarrassed and alarmed, demanded explanations from her brother. Since when were they with the priestess in such a relationship? Maya was no less tense than, and everyone else in this room. This situation was very alarming. This situation with black magic could become decisive for her life. As a secondary heroine of the novel, the fair-haired did not give Reiki to answer the attacks of her sister. Instead, she herself volunteered to explain to all the children. The brunette asked her if they should explain their relationship at all. What she did with him was very strange. Maya opened her mouth in indignation, but did not find what to answer. She pushed him back when he hugged her. The young man leaned toward her and asked, "Have you done nothing at all to draw us into this story?" The blonde excitedly turned into the children and whispered Rake that he said so that the children could misunderstand everything. Looking at the cunning and pleased expression on his brother's face, Delcane was sure of the rightness of his suspicions. Aisha darkened. The twin calmly explained to his sister that she was supposed to accept the fact that once Raka would marry the priestess. This whole situation seemed insanely strange to the girl. Something was wrong here, and she did not catch what exactly. Meanwhile, Raka, clouded at the doorjamb, said that it was time for them and Maya to talk to cleanliness. The children went to another room, and the girl, sitting at the table, tiredly dropped her head on the countertop without raising her eyes. Maya thought that now he would return to the topic that she had done something with food, and said that she had not poisoned anything. He did not believe and ordered a fair-haired man to tell the truth, but she had no idea what else to explain to him. Apparently, Raka told her pleasantness, not because he himself wanted it. Maybe she had the ability to cope with his strength? Although in the novel, the extras never had such strength. Raka asked if she wanted to prove that he himself had lost his mind. Maya perfectly understood how strange this whole situation was for the Duke, but once again emphasized that she was telling the truth. The brunette looked at her with a burning look, and from this, Maya became insanely scary and awkward. The girl made an attempt to smooth out the situation and suggested in this case even to pretend that there was nothing. The Duke suddenly directly asked the girl, "Do you hate me?" she asked, as if she had not heard, and then the guy turned away, saying that, probably, he just went crazy. Nevertheless, after a moment, the brunette to continue to drill her with an evil, suspicious look. Emotions gave out a girl. After that, the elders agreed not to tell anyone about what happened and how Raka showed weakness. Since they had such an agreement, Raka could deal with what happened. Already when they returned to the castle, the girl nodded her head. But then what could she do? If he found out who she was, he would send back to the temple. In the next instant, the dark-haired one bent over her and suddenly asked whether she realized that all this meant. She asked if the Duke had in mind that, since he could find out everything himself, asks her to tell the truth on his own. This meant that many people in the castle could find out who she was, but if she admits herself, only he would know. Holding her excitement under control, the blonde asked if this meant that Raka cared about her and her reputation. The guy explained to her that if the girl did not stick out, then someone could definitely find out about her, and she would be killed. She recalled that, according to him, she would be in the castle in safety. He said that he could not be responsible for all people. Maya understood that if someone learns about her and she was returned to the temple, then all her efforts were in vain. Her escape, the work of the nanny, if everything did not work out now, then she could just take her life. Raka admitted that he did not want her death, because no one could cope with the twins as she did. Having weighed all the pros and cons, the girl decided that it was still necessary to start actions in her defense. She seriously looked at the guy and expressed her hope that he would really like her to become a nanny, but at the same time, it seemed to the girl that he considered her a bad person. It was necessary to settle everything while the contract has not yet been signed. That is why it must have been a brunette and threatened her. He said that if others had learned, they would have thrown her out. Raka crouched on the other side of the table and apologized for his doubts. He was really obsessed with the thought of distrust. He finally admitted that the girl was unlikely to harm him, which means there was no need to rush with the disclosure of her personality. The Duke agreed to slowly recognize her, leaving next to him. So let her not even think of quitting work. At that moment, Delcane returned to the house, which not so long ago went outside on behalf of the older brother. Delcane was looking for Shakira flowers, but even if he found them, which was rare, they all faded at once. The girl asked them what kind of plants were, and while Raka refused to answer, the youngest told her the truth. The brother looked seriously at Delcane, and the blonde pretended that she only now realized that they were looking for Aintia in this wilderness. Raka said that his brother must have simply could not find flowers alone. He was going to look for them too. And, heading for the exit from the house, the young man suddenly turned around and told the priestess that she had to go with him. The girl abruptly refused to go anywhere, no matter how the guy tried to persuade her or force her. Raka tried to understand why she was so categorical, and the girl thought that they did not have time to search for flowers. Senior Aintia said that if the girl had a reason not to go out, then he would listen to her and make a decision. She immediately began to invent on the go that her clothes were torn in places, and therefore she could not go out into this form. He said that she could not raise her hands, and then nothing would have been visible. But Maya still bothered it. And the second reason, the blonde called her craving for homebody, which meant that she did not like to go out in general. Neither one nor the second reason was convinced, and he expressed his dissatisfaction to the girl. Delcane intervened in the conversation and said that his brother had to keep his promise and leave the priestess alone. The fair-haired man was madly happy that Delcane, like a little angel, always saved her in difficult situations. Raka was still unsatisfied with the reasons for the girl, but could not but keep his promise, especially under Delcane. The fair-haired praised Delcane for saying such correct things and told him to always keep his word. She, a little mockingly, said that his older brother Raka would just give a good example to her youngest. The Duke had no choice but to go in search of a flower himself, leaving the children under the supervision of a new nanny. Removing into the depths of the forest, the gray cardinal thought that if Maya runs away, then the poor consequences would wait for her. When the guy finally left, the girl was able to rest for the first time in a day, settling in one of the rooms on the windowsill. While she was sitting and thinking about her own, Delcane suddenly brought her a cup of a gagged drink, for which she thanked him. It was very funny to observe how different the characters had every member of the Aintia family. Suddenly, Delcane's face became somehow unreasonably gloomy, and the boy asked for forgiveness before Maya. He said that Raka did not express emotions very well, but he was sure that his daughter, in law, that is, he liked Raka. The blonde decided to first clarify that misunderstanding and explain to the youngest that there was nothing between her and his brother. The boy suggested, judging by the red face of the daughter-in-law, that she also had feelings for her brother. Despite all the excuses of Maya, Delcane said that he had never seen before his brother looked at someone like her. Maya again said that, obviously, the boy understood everything misunderstood. He replied that he saw this in books. The brunette definitely accurately noticed the sparks of feelings in their gulza, so the elders could not fool him in his own words. He understood that the daughter-in-law was angry, but the boy very much asked her to forgive her older brother at least once. Despite the misunderstandings with Raka, so far the most difficult person with whom she had to deal is Delcane. Having reached the desired place in the forest, Raka discovered that the younger brother was right and all the flowers fled. This was a big problem for him. He had never encountered a complete absence of Shakira flowers. The flower belonged to the imperial family, so it had no other choice but to get it secretly. The guy wanted to look a little more, but he heard male voices not far from himself. They also looked for flowers. These were imperial knights. They needed Shakira flowers. As the blessing ceremony was interrupted, the brunette noticed to himself that recently in the forest, it was strange quietly. Apparently, the emperor secretly planned something with the temple. The knights found that there were no colors about which the priests spoke about, so they were going to leave. Raka, hiding behind a tree, at that time decided to think over everything that he heard from the knights. Firstly, he found out that the emperor arrived in the temple in order to hold a blessing ceremony, but it had to be stopped. Secondly, the location of Shakira's flowers did not have a relationship to the imperial family, and something else happened. Thirdly, at present, flowers did not bloom here, and he needed to come up with some kind of decision. In this case, Maya, who possessed the same abilities as Shakira flowers, was really needed for him. Just in case, he wanted to prevent her from getting away from the work of the nanny. But as a result, everything worked out, and this is for the better. True, now another obstacle arose for Raka. Why was he and the girl so good? It alarming him. Finding next to her was like the effect of the Shakira flower. He felt that he was losing all his energy. His mind and body, which lost control, wanted to be near it. Possible. Contact is something like mediation. Speaking of touch, one specific person immediately came to the mind of Raka. He thought about the Rhine Adrian. She was also a girl who was able to immerse a person in a dream with just a touch. He was able to find her after a long investigation, but Maya was different from the Rhine that he knew. He could not let her go. Now the Duke had to buy a blonde some clothes in the nearest village. Since Maya's clothes broke, and she did not have the other, Raka felt the obligation to ensure her. While the girl was waiting for Raka's return, she felt that she was very tired and thought about taking a nap. She quickly fell asleep, and Raka, when he returned home, noticed her sleeping on the hall in the hallway. Trying not to make noise and not to disturb the girl's sleep, the young man gently sat down near her. He propped his head with a brush and hoped that the girl could relax and sleep well. The guy could not believe that he needed this woman, not even knowing about her real person. After some time, Delcane looked into the room to make sure that his brother had already returned from a walk. Raka asked the younger if Maya did something suspicious while he was not there, and Delcane said no. Also, the brunette asked whether Aisha was still puffing on him, and her evil cries from the next room was the answer. The door that was open until this moment closed. Delcane thought it was not to wake the priestess. Delcane once again became convinced that his brother liked this girl, since he cared about her. Raka asked the younger that the next day in the morning they would go home. Delcane nodded and went into the room to sleep. Hiding behind the door, he thought that, as he read in the book, at the beginning of the journey, lovers should have been in private more often. Therefore, in fact, the boy did not want to sleep. He simply allowed his brother and priestess to retire and have a good time together. The rest of the day flew by quietly, and when Maya woke up, was already night in the yard, and no one was nearby. The girl stretched. It seemed to her that she lay down only for a moment, and in the end she slept in half a day. She noticed that someone covered her while she was sleeping. It must have been a caring Delcane. Suddenly, Raka approached her and said to go into the room. Maya suggested that it was because someone came to them, but the brunette said that no one knew about this place. To get here, it was necessary to go through the forest. Nevertheless, someone still came, and this people obviously adhered to some plan. Maya decided just in case to take a pan with her and obediently went to the next room. She leaned against the closed door and tried to hear who and why came to their house. These were imperial knights. Raka opened the door for them, and they apologized for distorting him at such a late hour. The guy sternly replied that if they are sorry, then let them get out of here as soon as possible and do not cause him trouble. He said that they had nothing to look at and wanted to close the door, but the knights stopped him. They wanted to ask him something. One of the knights asked if Rock saw a woman here with blonde hair and blue eyes. Hearing this, Maya froze in place. Did they really look for her? But Raka answered them that he had not met such a girl. The knights would also like to personally inspect the house. But the Duke opposed them to burst without permission. In response to this, the men handed him the papers with the written permission of the emperor to inspect the houses of citizens. Therefore, without hesitation, 3 knights entered the house and promised that the inspection of the building would be fast. Maya all trembled with fear. One wrong step and she could be a lid. She could not make a mistake for nothing. The boys examined almost the entire house and then stopped near the twin room. Raka said that it is better for them not to open it. The outraged cries of Aisha came to Maya. Obviously, the knights nevertheless opened the door and stumbled upon rude beads. Realizing that soon the knights would get to her room, the saint decided to climb onto the bed and hide under the blanket. She did so, but managed to spend literally a couple of moments in her shelter when she heard Delcane's cries. One of the knights grabbed the boy, and he frantically twitched and bit, trying to break out of a strong man of a man. Losing his composure, the knight told him to be an obedient boy and stand calmly, and also called the child a jerk. And at that moment, the Mayan unexpectedly ran out of the room, hitting the knight behind the head with a pan. The girl wanted to protect the boy and was not enthusiastic about her act, but the children, on the contrary, considered her very cool. They expressed their admiration for her courage to the blonde, because of which the girl felt even more awkward. Aintia has already figured out the other 2 knights, so now it was necessary to leave as long as there was such an opportunity. It was better not to hesitate, because men could recover at any moment, and then they would not have greeted them. The elders and the children hastily changed clothes, collected things, and climbed into the carriage of Rocky, which he ordered the servants to fit in advance. Seeing in a carriage, the children continued to admire the girl's blow, saying that using a frying pan was a good idea. He honestly admitted that she herself did not quite understand how she did it. Apparently, simply the desire to protect Delcane was great. Interrupting the frivolous conversation of the priestess with the children, Raka asked her about why the Imperial Knights were looking for her. The brunette retold the words of the knights, that they were looking for a blonde with blue eyes in these parts. This is not a coincidence. But the fair-haired insisted on the opposite, that it was just like that. Circumstances agreed. She hoped that Raka would believe her. At the same moment, the children expressed their dissatisfaction with the fact that the elder brother scared the priestess with his strange questions. The girl found very sweet that the kids decided to stand up for her and protect, and Aisha even said that Maya would not marry her brother, but belonged to her, which was very surprised by the priestess. The girl thought that she had just said something very cool, but Delcane considered her sister's request, on the contrary, stupid. Aisha tried to prove that the fair-haired woman was so, because it was the brunette that was the first to hire the girl to work. The girl asked Lee Maya also counts. She uncertainly agreed that the hired person belonged to the employer. But the brunette was not enough for this formality. She wanted Maya to be completely her. She never gave her. Maya thought that before Raka was an embodiment for her, but Aisha now scared her more. At that moment, the Duke intervened in the conversation and told his sister that he was not going to take anyone away from her. Aisha just should now evaluate the opponent, because only Raka had the opportunity to fully hire someone. The girl said that the first said that she wanted to hire Maya. She belonged to her. But Raka did not agree. He told his sister that in this case she had to try, so that Maya would not be taken from her, which was possible. Listening to all these skirmishes and the fact that Aintia literally divided her, Maya suddenly wanted to jump out of the carriage. During the night, this whole company reached the castle, and the next day, Raka was already engaged in its business and work. He could not stop thinking that the girl was somehow connected with the imperial family, since they were looking for her. Judging by the circumstances, this, of course, was associated with its abilities, the identical flower of Shakira. It was necessary to quickly fill out the contract and hire Maya to work. He could not let them just take it from him, especially now, when there were no Shakira flowers. The girl and her abilities have gained much more value. The guy quickly compiled a document about hiring and carefully double-checked it for errors. At that moment, Rocky entered the office of Rocky, the assistant to the Duke, and apologized for lingering slightly. The brunette dispassionately noted that he had apparently relaxed until Raka was in the castle, but he did not agree. He vowed the width that, as always, he fulfilled his initial obligations, and he had no problems with this. Raka asked the guy, after that, was not any news about the imperial family. The width replied that something was. From yesterday, rumors have spread that the daughter of God appeared in the treatise temple and her strength manifested itself. The guy did not remember exactly, but he said that it seems that the girl was called Maya. The brunette asked the servant what abilities this Maya possessed, which could be called by God's daughter. I did not know the width, so the brunette sent him to investigate this issue and then report to the Duke of Information. And also, Raka told him to find out everything about the woman who came with them, but to do it secretly. He accepted his tasks wide and wanted to leave. But then the Duke stopped him, because he remembered another moment. Raka asked the guy to convey to the fair-haired one so that she would get to his office for conversation right now. The young man nodded and left, and Antia reread the compiled document for the last time, thinking whether this was enough for the contract. Suddenly, he remembered another point that he forgot to add to the contract, and began to correct it. He wrote that Maya's salary will be 1,500 cores, but the employee will have to sleep with the employer every night. When the girl went up to the brunette's office, he immediately gave her the contract drawn up to get acquainted. She was beside herself with happiness when she read him and saw how much her salary would be. The guy jokingly asked if the salary was too small, to which the girl hastily replied that no. It pleased Raku. He asked if the girl read the conditions and whether she was ready to discuss the nuances of the contract. She ran through the document once again. Everything was as they agreed initially, except for one point. She asked Raka what meant the last clause of their contract. He replied that exactly what is written in him. The girl was surprised by the condition that she would have to sleep with the Duke every night. She would never agree. The young man suddenly got up from the table and asked the girl to return the document to him because he forgot to add something else there. Maya was indignant at the last condition because she was hired as a nanny for the twins and not for the Duke. The guy replied that he knew about this, but then this item was different from what he and Maya spoke about initially. Raka admitted that he desperately needed a girl, and that is why he added this position to the contract. The blonde said that she could not do anything for the Duke, but he did not agree, because she really could. The girl went crazy and did not understand why she could need the Duke in the middle of the night and why he spoke with her riddles. Did he really need her in order to serve the Duke's desire at night? How he dared to offer her like that? She replied quite sharply that she could not engage in the night service of the Duke, and he was surprised at her strange thoughts. The girl did not understand what else the reason could be, if now she was not right in her guesses. He answered her that he forgot to write in the paragraph that they would only have to hold hands when they go to bed. But the blonde still thought that after they hold hands, the Duke could demand a hug and kisses. Catching herself on such shameless thoughts, Maya tried to get rid of this nonsense that she sat in her head. In order to somehow dissuade the Duke from this point, the girl said that she would not wash before bedtime and wash her hair once a week. But contrary to what reaction was expected to see, Raka said that there was no problem in this. He respected her needs. Then she said that she had terrible habits in a dream. She screamed, snored, gritted her teeth, and spoke during sleep. And she added that she constantly let saliva in a dream, trying to push the brunette with this lies. Maya hoped that after that, the guy had a desire to sleep with her, and he would quickly cancel the last point. She said that she allegedly did not want to deliver the Duke of Inconvenience, but he agreed to sleep with her, even with all these nuances. The girl could not understand why. The brunette honestly replied that he needed the ability that Maya hid. From the very beginning, he guessed that, it seemed, Maya had the ability to neuralize a person. It was in this that he needed. Raka wanted the girl to help him calm down and fall asleep. And she thought with horror that he must have understood who she was. But, since the fair-haired person could never return to the temple, it was better to agree to the conditions of the Duke, which she did. However, the blonde herself had another condition that she would like to enter into their contract. She said that if the guy at least once violates the point with holding hands, then this item was supposed to completely disappear. Raka reassured her and said that he would not make any other contacts except his hands. This really reassured the girl, but she decided that she should have added another item to their contract before signing. She wanted the Duke to protect her from the temple and hide it. That would not happen. She had to do everything thoroughly and accurately. The young man said, a little uncertainly, that he could do everything she wanted, but some difficulties could arise with the temple. Nevertheless, they finished their reservation, and Maya handed the Duke of paper so that he signed them. And after that, the document took Maya. She urgently needed to sign in the papers until the Duke changed his mind about anything. She left her signature in the indicated place and returned the Duke an agreement that came into force from this day. The guy's eyes hooked on one small detail. He asked whether the girl was not true that the girl was not Mimir, as she said. The girl felt that something was wrong, but admitted to the Duke that her real name was the name of Maya. This was incredibly struck by the Duke, and he froze, feeling how cold everything was inside from what he heard. Was she really the same Maya from the Tritios temple? Feeling something was amiss, Maya hastened to hide in her room. Perhaps this was just luck, but the contract was already signed, which means now everything should have been good. Having run away from the Rocky office, Maya thought that she should not worry about the future, because the Duke now knew everything. Also, she could not stop thinking about the fact that her abilities acted on Raku, and he was aware of this. Could she be in order if she used her strength on the guy when he had not yet suspected this? Although, if you think about it, it differed from the blessing, and it is good that she could use her forces and not give them away. That's just why unearthly Rocky so unexpectedly required her abilities. While she was considering all this, she was found by the Gemini, who had already joyfully rushed in her direction, calling her. The children looked at her through the door, which led in Tessa, and asked to play with them, because she had already talked with her brother. Maya looked out into the street and asked the twins what they were doing here. Those hung on the railing of Tessessa, not reaching the ground. The girl told them that it was dangerous to hang so much and asked to go down. If they do this, then she will come to them. The children obeyed, and a few minutes later, the girl was next to them on the street. She asked them what they did. Aisha said she did not want to train and therefore ran away, and Delcana followed her. Children skipped classes. The fair. Hared thought that the Gemini were still loafers, but she could understand them. When Maya went to the academy, she also did not want to engage in cramming and often ran away from classes until no one saw. With a sigh, the blonde decided not to punish the children for their absenteeism. This somewhat surprised the children, who were afraid of condemnation. Aisha's eyes lit up, and she again said that she really liked the priestess. Delcane noticed that their brother also fell in love with the charm of the daughter, in-law. But Aisha was infuriated that the twin called Maya. The boy proved to her that Raka in the future would definitely marry a fair-haired one, but the brunette replied that she would not allow. Suddenly, the girl's attention switched to the priestess, and she asked her who Mai liked her more, she or Raka. The blonde was very sorry to admit it, but what if they both did not really like them? But she could not say that. Delcane told her sister that this was a stupid question, because of course, Maya liked their older brother more. But Aisha protested. The brunette, as an argument, noted that if Aisha liked the priestess more, then she would not hesitate before the answer. The offended Aisha left them, and Delcane approached the daughter-in-law, and in that case suggested that they play together without Aisha. But the girl heard this and did not agree to such an outcome of events. Children began to pull the blonde by the hands in different directions. Delcane proposed to show the girl a mansion, and Aisha assured that she knew the mansion better than her brother, and she would show herself. But suddenly, the girl stopped her ardent speech and froze for a moment, looking blonde directly into her eyes. Maya asked Aisha in order of Li, and she asked Maya what she had just done to her. The girl, completely understanding anything, said that she did nothing, but the brunette ordered not to lie to her. Aisha told her brother that the priestess used on her that strange trick that the twin also had to know about. The girl had just for a moment felt that her forces had disappeared, and her heart definitely missed a blow. But at the same time, the sensation was pleasant. Nevertheless, she thought that she would go crazy because she liked it. The blonde thought that the same thing possibly happened to the child, as with Raka then, in the hut. Perhaps Maya, and this time, used her abilities by chance, without even understanding what she had just done. To check her theory, Maya asked Aisha again to take her hand, but she bounced off and categorically refused. Then the girl thought that everything was in order with Delcane. Then why did her ability work on Aisha and Reike? Maya asked him not to feel strange when he held her hand, in response to what Delcane flared up. The boy believed that Aisha lied about the sensation and did it in order to look good in the eyes of the daughter-in-law. The blonde was afraid that now their relationship could deteriorate because of her, and the twins would quarrel. Then, Maya asked Delcane to come closer and said that it seemed to her that Aisha was telling the truth. When asked Delcane about where the daughter-in-law knew this, she did not find what to answer so as not to substitute herself and Raku. Therefore, instead of telling the truth, Maya said that Ashi was not in the character of Aisha so brazenly. The boy agreed with this, but still doubted his sister's words. Maya suggested that he go and calm the twin. Then Delcane gloomily asked if Maya wanted to take a walk with Aisha, but the blonde believed that it was more fun together. The boy would like to object, but agreed and said that he would obey his daughter-in-law. She smiled broadly at him, crouching a little to be at the same level with him, and stroked the brunette through her hair. The boy went to his sister to reassure her, but it seemed only worse for his incredulous remarks. He asked Aisha if the daughter-in-law did her badly, but the girl said that on the contrary, she felt good enough. Then Delcane said that since she liked it, then she should not bounce and behave in this way. Perhaps in the end, the daughter-in-law would really marry her brother, which means they need to be in good relations with her. Aisha, like a capricious child, again began to say that they should not allow her brother to marry her. The girl went to the nanny and apologized. If you think about it, it was her fault and must have taught her a good lesson. Having decided to translate the topic, the girl asked Aisha when she conducted her an excursion to the castle. She was eager to see everything, but the girl remembered that the priestess had a leg, which means they could not go to watch the castle right now. But the fair-haired man insisted on a walk, and pointing her finger in a random direction, offered to start from that place. That's just in the direction where Maya showed. There was their brother. It was necessary to get around, otherwise the Gemini would have flew for absenteeism. Maya felt a little fragile pen pulled her sleeve, attracting attention. It was Aisha who asked the priestess to take her hand. She agreed to go for a walk only on such a condition. Maya seemed to be very sweet, and she hoped that nothing would happen to Aisha because of her strength. To play up and intent to make contact, Aisha took the priestess by the index fingers, pulling behind her. The girl thought that it would be safer, but the priestess was not sure that due to less contact, the force decreased. Nevertheless, they stopped at this. And then Aisha asked Maya whether she could call her sister. The girl allowed, and after that, she and the twins walked on the castle for a long time until the day was over. She became very close to the twins and then returned to her room. It is strange that so much was paid for such work. It was enough for the girl to earn only 6,000 cores, and then she could quit and live a free, happy life. Thinking about this, the girl suddenly heard some strange sounds that came from under her bed. She decided to bend over and check what was the source of this unusual noise. Well, or who was a source? Looking under the bed, the girl found that two sparkling eyes looked at her from the darkness and immediately bounced, screaming. The night mystic immediately ran to the screams that he took place not far away. He asked the nanny what happened. She answered him a little nervously. Supposedly, she just accidentally fell out of bed. The knight told her to be more accurate. After that, the knight left, and a small raccoon got out of the bed. It was a territory in the guise of a new animal. Maya appreciated the choice of God as cute, but a little dirty. He hoped that the girl would appreciate his hickers. He thought that since he was dear, she would like it, and she told him such muck. Maya said that the dirt remained mud. Tritos notified her that he came to tell her about her forces. The girl had been waiting for this for a very long time, so she was glad. God invited them to sit on the bed, because the floor was hard, but the girl said that he would not allow him to climb a clean bed. After that, she even accidentally pushed the territory so that the poor raccoon flew away from her to the side, hitting a flower pot. She immediately took him in her arms and apologized for her oversight. The girl was worried that God would not hurt. After that, Tritos decided that he would never take the face of a raccoon again, since she had such a sharp attitude towards him. She asked him not to be angry, ironically saying that the merciful Tritos could not be angry with the girl. He said gloomily, "The Maya knows how to choose the right words." In the matter, she thought that he would be offended, but this did not happen. After that, the raccoon began to explain to her that strange phenomena began to happen with Maya due to the fact that she did not give a blessing. The girl asked him why this happened due to the blessing, and why her unification was associated with the flower of Shakira. Tratos said that the flower was absorbed if it was accepted in an acceptable amount and had such an influence as stimulants. Simply speaking, the Shakira flower also had the characteristics of the substitute for a love potion. She never turned to him as she returned, so the ability could appear only when contact. The girl scolded the raccoon that he did not immediately tell her about this, and he replied that he had come running right away as he found out about their contract. He once again reminded that she could fix everything if she blessed Keeney's, but the girl did not want to hear about it. Maya took him by the scruff and menacingly, with a challenge, invited God to repeat what he had just said. He demanded her to let him go, but the blonde wanted God to first tell her about another way to use power. Raccoon said that there was a relic, similar to its energy, and it had to be isolated. Then the blonde asked if God would bring her one such relic that was very offended by the territory. He was not obliged to listen to her, but the girl frightened him so much that he agreed to provide her with a soil service. Since they figured it out with everything, the territory was about to leave. But the girl had another question that she wanted to know the answer. Tritus told her that if she used her forces with red intentions, then the abilities did not affect her in any way, and her forces could not act on ordinary people, but only on people who possessed abilities. Then Maya realized that her forces did not act on Delcane, because he was not a black magician like Aisha and Raka. It was very difficult for the girl to believe that only touching she produced the effect of aphrodisiac or a love potion. So what's the difference between the main character and the extras? Rhine's power could simply euthanize people, unlike her. But Maya could not control her strength. She was so glad to work here, and now she was not sure of anything. Over the past few days, the girl has been very tired, and rather morally than physically, so I just wanted to forget myself. Regrets could not change anything, alas. If you do nothing, then nothing to change. Therefore, the girl decided to just try to act, then accept the situation. She had to cope. Behind her thoughts, she did not notice how she fell into a dream. And she woke up from the fact that she was awakened by the maid. The girl introduced herself to Rita. She worked in the eastern wing of the castle, and Raka now sent her to the nanny. The Duke asked Maya to call him. Although the time was already later than midnight, and everyone was already sleeping in the castle, the blonde thought that tomorrow was listed in the contract, like the first worker. But now he came. The nanny asked the maid to convey to the Duke that she was sleeping, but the Duke's desire, unfortunately, was higher than her. The girl had no choice but to gather and ask Rita to lead her to the Duke's room, but the woman stopped her and said that, for a start, the blonde should have changed into sleeping clothes. The maids prepared a nightdress for Maya, and Rita happily showed and gave it to the fair, haired, sending it to change clothes. Maya did not think that the Duke was needed to change her clothes, but Rita grinned. She thought differently. The girl tried to dissuade the persuasion of the woman and reminded that the Duke allowed her not to wash or change clothes. The guy handed over these words to the maid, so she was aware that the Duke was loyal to the wishes of the girl. But, in any case, Raka wanted Maya to be comfortable because she was so worried, because this is the first working day. It was then that Rita realized that she, as a maid of the Duke family, had to do everything necessary for this. Ultimately, Maya nevertheless changed clothes and already soon stood on the threshold of the Duke's room. Noticing that the girl finally came, the guy invited her to finally go inside the room and not stand in the aisle. She felt embarrassed enough and embarrassed, not understanding how she should behave and what to do. The words sounded in my head that in moderate amounts of its forces they reassured, but with strong contact were a stimulant. She understood that she should have avoided all contacts until the territory would bring her the sacred relic that he was talking about. Noticing the girl's anxiety, the guy asked her to have any problems that disturbed her. She said no. Then Raka said that, in this case, let it take off her robe and lies next to him. Maya was alarming in alarm why she would take off her robe, and Raka explained that it was just too hot in the room. The girl categorically refused to shoot him. The guy did not understand. Wouldn't she be hot in a bathrobe and under the blanket? But the fair-haired stood on her own. She decided that it was better to mate than Raka would see her nightshirt. Then the brunette had suspicions that the girl could hide something under her robe. She joked, assuring him that this was not so. But Raka considered this quite possible, given the strange behavior of Maya. Trying to take away the Duke's suspicion, Maya substantiated her anxiety by the fact that she had problems with the shoot. The guy believed in this and said that the daughter of God himself would never have done such things in the evil mind. Due to the fact that Raka, instead of calm conversations, constantly clung to her, the girl felt tension next to him. The brunette suddenly said that, although he did not know what made her escape from the temple, but he would also hide it in her place. The blonde was pleased to understand that the brunette understood her and did not condemn her for excessive secrecy. Maybe he was not so bad. The guy, noticing the girl's thoughtfulness, asked why she had such a stupid look, and the girl instantly changed her mind. She said resentfully that her gaze was not stupid at all, and frowned. Raka moved closer to her and smiled. In fact, he chatted with her about it to everyone only to relax. He leaned back on the pillows and with a grin said that he would be uncomfortable to sleep with a man resembling a log from excitement. Besides, if she was uncomfortable, was he better from this? They had mutual relations. That is why they were needed by each other. The girl could not disagree with the words of the Duke. When she finally calmed down, the guy lay on his side, propping his head with his hand, and then suggested that she go to bed next to him. Still experiencing because of the words of the territory, Maya hoped that Raka would allow her to sleep separately for at least one day. The guy crouched on the bed and asked her what happened this time. Maya asked to give her 2 more days. She hoped that there was enough for 2 days to make Treatise bring her the promised relic, and then she could sleep with Raka. The Duke showed her that she violated the contract. The girl dismissed, saying that he had not paid her yet. In the contract, there was a clause that in case of violation of Maya, paid a fine 3 times more than the amount of salary received. But, since Raka has not paid anything to her yet, she did not bear responsibility for this. She went to the door, but as soon as she reached, the brunette pressed her against the wall. It seemed to him that the priestess was always trying to run away from him. Maya said that this was completely wrong, and Raka replied that in this case, he did not want to wait another 2 days. Having managed to see the Duke's face close, Maya thought that the guy looked very tired. How much did he not sleep? With every second, Raka was angry more and more. He wanted to understand why the girl made him wait another 2 days. Realizing that he was straining her with his proximity, Raka walked away. But he wanted to know why the blonde always avoided him. The guy wanted to honestly talk, so he took her hand. But Maya pickedly understood what this touch was fraught with. She tried to pull out her hand until her strength began to act on Raku, but the guy was stronger than her. And in the next instant, abilities again had a stupefaction effect on Raku. He froze in place. Immediately, a smile appeared on the Duke's face, and the voice became affectionate. She knew that it would be so. Not wanting to aggravate the situation, Maya pushed the young man and told him to stand a few meters from her and not to approach. She hoped that now Raka would go what effect she had on him and why she asked her to give her 2 more days. The effect quickly dissipated, and it came to his senses. Raka frowned as he lost his head from such a little contact. He sat on the bed and lowered his head. He knew that the larger the contact area was, the more difficult it was to keep his mind. But when he simply held her hand, everything was in order, as Raka said, so there was an exception. Now Maya realized why, in the contract, it was stated to sleep with his hand to his hand. Nevertheless, this night Raka let her go. The girl immediately jumped out of the room, and the brunette remained sitting alone, drowning the floor in the room with an annoyed look. Walking along the corridor, Maya tried to understand why she felt so awkward. Why did Raka want to sleep with her so much? Why should it be exactly her? Did Raka, like Emperor Keynes, couldn't sleep without a Jakira flower? If this was so, then Maya was extremely surprised. Probably she should have read the original story more carefully. Raka lay on the bed in his room and thought about how difficult it was to believe what happened from touching the palm of his hand. He suspected that this could happen, but this time the guy realized something else for himself. The emotions that arose from Maya were definitely a desire, not just the effect of strength. The young man covered his face with his hands and rolled over on his side. Why couldn't he sleep and controlled himself poorly? Hearing some kind of knock on the door, the guy started up. Is it Maya returned? But the door opened and not Maya entered the room, but Aisha, who could not fall asleep. but also suffered from the fact that her head hurt. She went to her older brother and hugged him. The girl said that Delcane had already fallen asleep, but she still could not. Aisha said that in an attempt to fall asleep, she had already considered 1,000 sheep, but the dream still did not come to her. Raka thought that this must be due to the use of black magic. Therefore, he was opposed to Aisha studied her. Each time, when Aisha conjured, her body became weaker and magic is stronger. Anxieties and fears crawled out of there. The Duke tried to persuade his sister to stop using black magic, but she was stubborn and said she would think. Raka desperately wanted to prevent the twins from becoming unhappy, but the cruel education of their parents prevented him from protecting the children. The twins were taught not to show their weaknesses, and also said that the black magic of Antya was a unique ability. Parents believed that suffering is the price of power. When Raka became an adult, he expelled the old duke and the duchess. If he learned about the consequences of black magic before, he would never have allowed the children to suffer like that. But it was already too late. Aisha thought that Raka was simply angry due to the fact that she was very similar to her older brother. For example, he told her the width that when she was stubborn, she was very similar to the senior Aintia. Raka was glad to talk to Setra, but it was time to sleep, so he told her to stop fooling and going to bed. The guy grabbed her in his arms and threw her on the bed next to him, covering her blanket. The girl had no other choice. The young man told her to close her eyes and try to fall asleep again. Aisha reluctantly, but still agreed to try again. After a conversation with Aisha's brother, her head even stopped hurting, and he told her to fall asleep until the pain returned. Aisha said that on this day in her brother's room, it smelled especially pleasant, and this aroma was very, very relaxed. A moment. The girl dawned on the smell, and she asked her brother Evil, was he really sleeping with his sister? The next day, the weather on the street was a wonderful and bright sun illuminated the roof of the ancient castle. Maya woke up early enough and drank tea that there was nothing better in the morning than a cup of hot drink. While she drank tea, Rita suddenly ran into the room and began to shout that Aisha suddenly disappeared somewhere. Rita said she was passing next to Aisha's room. The doors were open, and the room itself was empty for the rotation. Maya was upset that this happened on her first working day. The maid said that Raka was not yet in the know. Rita suggested that Aisha simply again slipped away before the etiquette lesson. She often did that. Maya asked where then she could try to look for a girl, but Rita said that they had never found a brunette. Because of this, the past nanny had problems. The blonde was annoyed that Aisha decided to start the war early in the morning. In search of the girl, Maya walked along the estate and decided to call Delcane, but Rita replied that he was also looking for her sister. The blonde went out on her balcony and accidentally noticed Delcane, who was digging in the garden. In a small hole in front of him lay an animal. Maya saw that Delcane buried some squirrel, but decided not to tell anyone about it, keeping his secret. The nanny didn't even have to look for a long time. Soon Aisha herself came running to her and began to ask if the Mayan was the truth with her brother. An excited blonde confidently answered the girl that this was not so. Why would a brunette ask about this? But the girl did not satisfy the girl's response. She ordered her to not lie to her and tell the whole truth about them with her brother. Maya repeated her words, but Aisha pointed to Rita and asked why then the maid was so embarrassed. The frustrated Aisha screamed to his sister that sleeping with Raka, bust, as soon as she could do that. The girl said that Maya had not slept with her yet. How then she dared to sleep with Raka's first, then with her? The nanny tried to explain that Rita was embarrassed for other reasons, but the dark-haired woman was confident in her rightness. Trying to somehow get out of this situation, Maya suggested that Aisha sleep together if Raka resolves. Aisha said that he would settle everything. The maid admired how reliable the girl was, that Maya believed her so. The girl sparkled with a radiant smile and asked if the Maya really believed that the brunette would be able to agree with Raka. Maya, stuttering a little from the nerves, replied that of course she believed because of the conviction of the youngest. Suddenly, he went into the room wide and irritably asked Aisha what she did in the chambers of the nanny. The young man reminded the youngest that there was a time for her etiquette lesson, and the girl brazenly walked. He threatened her widely that he would go now and tell her older brother that Aisha did well. The girl was very angry that he substituted her so much and he asked the girl not to play with his name when he was angry. The next instant, Aisha had already flew out of the room. The blonde was surprised at what obscure the girl was. The nanny smiled. She perfectly understood Harkter and the behavior of the younger, and why she got angry. Now he turned his attention to the girl and apologized for not introducing her at once. He corrected this. Maya was replaced by the name of the latitude, because it literally translated as, "I hate work." She tried not to laugh. He led the girl into the library and said that she could look after the Gemini here and remind them of classes. And also, the assistant to the Duke recalled that her duties were to prevent the children from getting into trouble. The guy wished her good luck, saying that he was thinking that she was a good nanny and be sure to cope. Maya thanked him. He also spent her on the castle and showed that the twins' rooms were in the western wing and there was a dining room. If you go right along the corridor, then she could just come to that wing. In the same place, by the way, the Duke's bedroom was. He explained widely that the main building was mainly intended for events, work, and entertainment. When they reached the right place, the guy pointed her to Delcane and Aisha's room. Maya said thanks to him. The young man apologized, because he had to show her all this before. The nanny thought that he spoke very beautifully. She has not met such people for a long time. The more I watched the pain, the more I understood that he was a kind and honest person. At that moment, another person suddenly appeared in the corridor. It was a tall woman aged. The Maya has never met her until this moment, so there was no idea who it was, but a woman was dressed with dignity. The first that this brown-haired woman said was the indignation that Maya allegedly blocked her path. The Width, completely not surprised, said that the lesson apparently ended. He introduced the blonde as a new nanny. By that time, Maya had already figured out who it was in front of her, so she greeted Countess to test. But instead of the return greeting of the brown-haired man with contempt, and boredly said that Maya was dressed like a rogue. The woman also said that the fair-haired must have a very low origin, literally from slaves. He stood up for her and told the Countess that, apparently, a misunderstanding arose. He hastened to disagree with the harsh statement of the woman and said that the new nanny was not a slave. The Countess still thought that she was right, but invited the girl to tell about her origin in order to convince her. The nanny immediately thought that he must have not known the truth. Only Raka was in the know who she really is. The Countess continued to aggressively express her position. She heard that not so long ago the Duke was in the slave market. She thought that the reason was that he lacked the nannies, but assured that the nanny was not connected with this. Having made an attempt to peacefully finish the dialogue, Maya suggested that the Countess was probably in a hurry. They could talk later. But the woman became even more displeased and said that she did not think that they could cross her again. And then she said that she was joking. But Maya was not at a loss and laughed calmly, quite calmly, from the words of the Countess. When she asked why the girl laughed, Maya replied that she thought that the Countess loved to joke. But apparently not. The patience of the woman came to an end, and she, angry, swung behind the fair-haired man for such impudence. But at that moment, Aisha and Delcane ran out into the corridor to see what was happening outside the doors of their bedroom. The children noticed that the Countess waved to their nanny and began to accuse her of being wanted to hit her sister. The brown-haired woman, in order not to enable the twins, pretended that they, on the contrary, had just met, and she wished Maya good luck. But the children, seeing the fact that the Countess closed to May, regarded it like a woman had just hit her in her shoulder. Hearing children's screams, the Duke also appeared in the corridor, dissatisfied with the fact that they divorced such noise and quarrels here. The guys joyfully waved their hands to his brother, saying that he came just in time. Maya already managed to forget about him. The children asked Raku if he knew what he had done with his sister. He frowned that he heard that she had been hit. The Countess very deliberately, politely greeted the Duke. Maya tried to explain Aintia that they all understood not so. But the woman was the first to make excuses and say that there was a misunderstanding. She did not try to hit the nanny. She said that the Gemini accused her only because she scolded them during the lesson. She lied very skillfully. But since the twins were not scolded today, they hastened to say this, and the Countess assured that she scolded them for being late. The fair-haired man could not allow the twins to be scolded for what they did not do, because of her. Maya interceded the elders' conversation and suddenly admitted that the Countess really tried to hit her. She decided that they accidentally collided here, and then the brown-haired woman called her a former slave. The Countess tried to abandon her words, to prove that this was not, but Maya enlisted the support of the breadth. The assistant to the Duke confirmed that the blonde was telling the truth, and after that, the Duke did not want to listen to the woman's excuses. Delcane unexpectedly, brutally suggested just killing the Countess for such arrogant and sharp behavior towards their nanny. The Duke asked what reasons they had for this, and the boy replied that the woman insulted the nanny and accused Aisha of a lie. Raka gloomily agreed, saying that this was equated with disrespect for him, so her fault was obvious. The joyful Aisha suggested turning a woman into a powder for this. It turns out that now the twins did not need to go to classes. Maya was afraid that Aintia really could have killed her, so she rushed to the Duke and seriously said that it was impossible. At the same moment, she realized that she did not notice how she touched Raka. Now he had to change? But at the same time, she could not let him go. What was the guy going to do in this situation? The brunette softened and asked why the Countess should not be killed. Maya replied that it was not in her interests to look at this. Then the Duke suggested not to erase it into powder, but to do it with dust. But the fair-haired said that it was one and the same. The guy offered one after another, new variants of how they could deal with a poor guilty woman. The Duke confidently said that he was not going to endure that he was treated in this way. Especially, he could not allow someone to touch and offend Maya. Her comfort was important to him. It seemed to the girl that the more she touched Raku, the stronger the effect became the following times. The blonde assured him that she could not help but worry. They should not have killed the Countess. This will have consequences. She promised that she was ready to do everything for him, but really wanted the guy to listen to her in this case. Raka straightened her light strands with his hand, and smiling at how kind and noble the girl was, he told her that he realized that he should not have killed, but instead to take care of the fair-haired man, which she was delighted. The brunette broke into a gentle smile and told Maya that if she wanted so much, but he would not kill a woman. Having achieved her, the blonde pushed the Duke from herself, thereby ending with the effect of touch. All this time, Delcane had to close the Evoy Aisha's mouth, who wanted to be outraged by the proximity of the elders. Aisha still wanted them to punish a proud upstart, but instead, the Duke invited them to calm down and dine. The Aintia family, along with Maya, went down to the dining room, where they had already set a table with chic dishes. The girl froze, looking at the set table. From how delicious everything that the cooks were prepared looked delicious. From her appetite, her saliva almost did not flow, and Raka asked her to recover and stop behaving strangely. Everyone began to eat, and during lunch, Delcane noticed that the sister again ate meat, so he offered to try potatoes. Aisha said that her sister's potatoes had a different taste, and this one was made as if for vegetarians. Nevertheless, Delcane handed her a plate with potatoes and said that it was prepared from the same ingredients. The girl tried, but she did not like neither the taste nor the view of the dish, and she got angry because of this. Maya asked the girl to spit on a napkin if she did not like food, because otherwise such behavior was unacceptable. Aisha, hearing that she was scolded, asked Lili Maya because of the manners and whether she would now refuse to sleep with her. Hearing these words, the Duke frowned and asked his sister what she was talking about. Then Aisha told her brother that the nanny said that they could sleep together. She thought her brother already knew. Maya thought that for the sake of her own future, she was supposed to take the side of Aisha. She admitted that she promised it. The Duke was clearly unhappy. The brunette suddenly stated that her sister would sleep with her, starting from this day. Brother sternly asked for the truth. In his lilac eyes, either resentment or angry stinging sparks was read. The girl tried to gesture to hint the brunette that they could discuss everything later, not with children. But the Duke did not understand the hint, and, seeing its active gestures, only asked if she felt bad. The brunette told the maid to bring medicines for the nervous tic, but Maya jumped up, assuring that she was in order. She wanted to explain to the Duke that she meant her wink, but the children looked at them, so she had to be silent. Therefore, the girl reconciled and calmly sat back in her place. She agreed that she was really tired. Delcane could not miss it past his ears, and asked the girl if the nanny was really tired. Maya confirmed and said that, probably, She would immediately get better after eating and rest, so she should not worry. Aisha at that moment ate potatoes, wanting to please the girl with her obedience. She admitted that she could not eat anymore, and after that, part of the potatoes, the girl spat out carefully into the napkin, which was no less pleased with Maya. The nanny was pleased that Aisha corrected the habit immediately after her words, and could not help but praise the obedient girl. Maya said that Aisha could start to eat vegetables in the near future at such a pace. The girl was happy to praise. The Duke recalled that the nanny still had to drink the medicine, but he pretended to be not heard about their agreement with Aisha. Aisha was indignant at why he was worried about a girl with a nanny or not, but Raka categorically refused his younger sister. Then the girl flared up and said loudly that since Raka was sleeping with her, then the brunette also had the right to do so. Raka was embarrassed and asked who said Aisha like that. She replied that she asked the servants. Her brother would not tell her the truth. The brunette said that if Maya would sleep with the brunette, then it would be overtime, so he refused. The girl was upset and barely restrained her tears of resentment. Raka asked her to respect the personal life of his nanny. Maya sat silently and in tension. She understood that the situation completely got out of control. After lunch, the Duke left the dining room and headed for the corridor, somewhere about his business. The fair-haired one got up after him and wanted to know where Raka was heading and whether they could discuss everything. The brunette turned around and answered her that he was just going to his personal account. Then the blonde suggested that he return and console Aisha, but Raka said that the girl rolled tantrums too often. Maya believed that Raka was too rude, and he told her that he simply could not sleep at all that night. Finally, the Duke admitted to the girl that he simply could not sleep at all without her. He did not even close his eye after he lost consciousness then, at their meeting. She asked why this was happening. The guy said that the Antia family used black magic. Maya had to understand this because of Aisha. The reckoning for the use of forces were the voices of the dead that they heard. It was worth only to close their eyes. In the Empire, black magic was guarded, but there was one particularly forbidden spell, because of which the magician later heard the voices of the dead. At this moment, the fair-haired realized that Rocky had to use this spell, and therefore he was now looking for a Shakira flower. Aisha tried to appropriate the nanny, and therefore Raka was angry. If Maya will sleep with her, then he would have to suffer without sleep. Now the fair-haired realized why the guy behaved so strangely. She could understand his motives and experiences. At that moment, Maya remembered the fact that the more they had contact with Raka, the more she had strength. Suddenly, Maya asked the guy what he planned to do, and said that she was going to immerse him in his agreement by his consent. She explained that the twins still had no more classes on this day, so she could devote her time to him. The girl did not even know that he could not fall asleep, or that she worked for the strength even with a little contact, but now she knew it. Raka must have been terribly exhausted due to the fact that she left yesterday, so she asked if he had time. She suggested the young man that he was busy, so she said that he would come later, but Raka agreed. He quickly strode along the corridor towards his room, so that Maya barely kept up with a decisively tuned Duke. Rake was difficult to admit aloud, so he confusedly admitted that he really died of exhaustion. They entered his room together. The curtains were tightly drawn and was dark enough for a comfortable sleep. Maya asked, unless he was stuffy because of the eternally drawn curtains. But Raka did not like the light, so he was pleased. The guy said that the Shakira flower was very difficult to purchase, so he did not use it every night. It turned out that the brunette, because of his problem, had to sleep for a long time only once every 2 to 3 days. Maya mentally suggested that Raka in the novel committed crazy acts because he could not sleep, going crazy. Raka sat on the edge of his bed and called the girl to him. Why did she stand as a room at the other end of the room? The girl asked if she could sit in a chair and did not lie down. The guy asked, could she really sleep in a chair? Maya hastily replied that she could not, so Raka again called her to her and offered to lie down nearby. He bowed his head a little to one side, begging her, hoping that the girl would agree to sleep with him like normal people. The girl was very embarrassed by only the thought of this, so she explained that she herself was not going to sleep. She sat on a chair and said that she would just sit here and watch how the Duke was sleeping. Maya argued that she had already enough sleep, but the Duke said that he would call her at night. Raka explained that he simply could not fall asleep if someone would sit opposite and look at him. The fair-haired one felt a little awkward due to the fact that she came here to lull him and not sleep together. Suddenly, Maya still agreed, because if they sleep now, then it meant that she would not have to come at night. But before lying, the fair-haired wanted to open the curtains and breathe a little fresh air to calm down. Raka did not argue, but asked her to sit on the bed in this case so that he could change into sleeping. Raka headed for his wardrobe to get comfortable clothes for himself, since he had time for this. The girl sat on the bed. She decided that she would close the window when Raka would return, but she heard some sounds. She turned around and saw Raku, who was just taking off his day shirt. She did not think that she would catch him. Maya immediately turned confusedly, feeling her cheeks burned very much. She pretended not to see anything. Dressing, Raka asked her where Maya was looking right now and what she was thinking about. She said she looked at the butterflies. The girl nervously explained that a butterfly flew outside the window and then quickly changed the subject, noting that Raka was trained. He confirmed this, saying that he had daily training with the sword that he visited to be in shape. When Raka changed clothes, he asked a little indignantly how for a long time the girl was about to look at him. He said that he would not stop if she continues to stare at him, and then Maya will see other parts of his body. The embarrassed girl jumped on the spot and excitedly stated that she did not want to see anything else. She turned away and could not help but think that Raka was clearly the most pumped butterfly she saw. Maya, as if by chance, said that the room became hot, and therefore her face blushed so as not to admit her embarrassment. Raka allowed her to breathe fresh air before going to bed, and he asked if she wanted to say something. The girl said no. She was already thinking about it, but it was still hard for her to understand what Raka was for a person. She went to the balcony of his room, and with blessed pleasure, allowed the cool wind to refresh her skin. After a few moments, Raka also looked out into the balcony and said quietly from the shadow, "Charming." He said that Maya looked beautiful, with her eyes closed. He no longer remembered when the last time he rested as with her. The girl clearly did not expect to see such a vulnerable side of Raka, so she did not quite know what she should have answered. But instead of an answer, the girl realized that it was better to use her abilities and calm Raku with actions, not words. Maya was interested in checking whether her power on Raka would work as well as on Aisha if he takes her by the finger. The guy was noticeably surprised, and then the girl said that he could not remember when the last time was resting she would help. It would be nice for him to take his chance and again feel such a long-awaited peace. The young man smiled at her with a calm smile and said that he, right, was worth a guess himself. But in terms of the girl, there was one problem. Raka had too big a hand so that he could calmly hold onto his finger. They compared their palms without touching each other and made sure that Raka's hand was too large. Then Maya sat on the bed next to him and explained how it was worth lying correctly to the guy. Thinking something, she touched Raka's palm with her little finger and asked if he would feel something from it. She was interested in checking whether forces would work with such the slightest contact and whether Raksh would feel good. The guy really became a little calmer. Then Maya asked him to close his eyes, and he obediently did it. Noticing that the guy was lying quite calmly, she asked his well-being. The brunette, with a blissful smile, said that he now understood what it was to relax under the sun with his eyes closed. He opened his eyes and smiled gratefully to the girl. Only thanks to her could he feel good again. If they had not met, then the guy would not have thought that he could once feel so good again. The girl confidently said that from now on, she will help him to feel it always when he needs it. But the next instant, she realized that under the influence of the moment she blurted out, did not understand what. She was in a small confusion and already invented how to justify herself. "Have you agreed?" Spoke to myself. Immediately, the girl decided to justify her words by the fact that this duty was simply registered in her contract. She needed to pull herself together. Nothing good would have come out of the connection between the main character of the novel. She got up and closed the curtains. Maybe he behaved well with her, but Raka was a bastard, and the most terrible and cruel villain in the original. And the attractive appearance of Raki went only as the second chief male character. She could not allow the appearance and manners of the Grey Cardinal to fool her and force her to trust. The room became very dark due to closed curtains. Maya only thought that she could not fall in love with the Duke. The girl lay down on the bed next to Raka, and they agreed that she would again join his hand with one little finger. Then, Raka was able to calmly close his eyes and feel how warmth and reassurance spread over his body. Suddenly, he asked Maya when she was about to close her eyes and try to fall asleep. She was surprised that he noticed this even with his eyes closed, and he explained that Maya just looked at him intently. The girl said that he would fall asleep now, but he replied that she would believe only when she would close her eyes with him. She closed it specifically for him, and then the guy was able to calmly fall asleep. And Maya thought when she should wake him up. Lying in bed next to the Duke, the fair-haired realized that in fact, she herself was tired. After some time, Maya opened her eyes, not understanding how much time passed, whether it was a dream or reality. Raka hung over her, shaking her shoulder. He wanted to make sure that the girl finally woke up. She was frightened that in a dream she could increase contact with Raka, and that she should not then fall asleep at all. She asked the Duke to move away from her, but the guy smiled insidiously instead, and asked to call him by name. The guy pressed the girl to the bed, hanging over her. She asked him to let her go, but he said that he did not want to. The girl assured him that he said so only from the fact that he was not in himself, but Raka did not agree with this. He said that he was now and then he was one person, but the girl knew better about how they were different. The guy leaned closer to her, approaching the ear itself, and whispered quietly that he really wanted to touch her. He said that he liked her so much that he would be glad to even die right now for her. Maya tried to stop him, but for some reason after that, the guy only heated more. She touched his head with her hand, trying to push away from herself, and thought that irreparable could happen at such a pace. Raka removed her hand and reminded that he had no fever. The guy from her actions did not even move into an inch. At Maya, he nevertheless released her wrist, but did not get off her, even though the girl asked. The blonde thought to herself that it was foolish to believe that she could reach him, but when Raka invited her to bring a new pillow to make it more convenient, Maya realized that it was her chance to escape. When Raka moved a little, she took her pillow, swung and hit the guy to free herself. She hit him in the face with a pillow, but the Duke did not even move. This blow did not work on him. The brunette took the pillow out of her hands and frowned. Was she really going to cut it down with this pillow? Nevertheless, this returned the guy self-control. He did not swear, but even vice versa, he said to do it when he would lose control. But he warned Maya that she should be very careful so that he did not understand what she was going to do. Maya scratched his head a little uncertainly and said that then let the guy not take his words back later. Meanwhile, the brunette looked at his watch and asked the girl that it was 7 o'clock in the evening. They slept longer than Maya expected. The guy told the girl that, even though he has a lot of work, he could deal with her tomorrow and asked, "Do you want to have dinner?" Maya answered him that no. She wanted to leave, but the Duke suddenly told her that he was spinning. He leaned back on the pillows and told her that he thinks that they should sleep more so that he began to feel good. Maya was indignant at this, but the brunette told her that the girl was sleeping every day, so she has enough 5 to 6 hours. But he did not. He reminded her that she should follow the terms of the contract. Since the sun was already sitting and there was night, Maya should lie down with it. The brunette reassured her experiences and promised that nothing would happen at night, so she could calmly go to bed nearby. So they calmly overslept until the morning, and the blonde admitted with relief that nothing had happened at night. Noticing that the nanny woke up, Rita entered the room, who brought her some goodies on the tray. The maid called it cookies of love, and then the blonde was happy to take one little thing to dedicate. Cookies just melted in the mouth. Maya praised him and said that it was tasty and very sweet. She asked Rita. The Duke Lee ordered her to bring the nanny this cookies of love. The brown-haired woman confirmed her guess. Rita could not believe that the Duke asked her to cook cookies to the girl. The maid thought he would always be lonely. Maya thought that this cookies were simply called cookies of love, but it turned out that it was just a cookie made with love. At the same time, the Duke was already working in his office. At some point, he called to him a breadth, which was a little excited. The guy was wary that the brunette did not see the whole last day, and now the master also worked slowly enough. Raka muttered the name of Maya to himself, and then he was very fastened when he realized that he had said it aloud at the Shiroma. He tried to reassure him wide that, probably, he was only heard, but the brunette did not deny that the name of the nanny said. Raka asked the guy where he knew that the nanny was called Maya. The wit replied that, thanks to his investigation, the brunette was unhappy that all this time he worked wide, but did not provide him with an intermediate report. Then, he said wide that he found out that Maya was from Liberton. In connection with the prophecy, she was nicknamed God's daughter. Liberton was slums on the outskirts of the empire. Both small and large crimes were common there. He also knew the width that, after Maya took the temple to educate, there was another prophecy that he did not make up. The guy handed Rake a piece of paper on which the prophecy was written, and he began to read carefully. The prophecy said that the daughter of God would bring the inviolability of the great empire when its power was awakened. Raka noted that the girl was concealed from everyone, since to tell about the prophecy, to show the whole world the weakness of the empire. If you think about it, Maya always sought to escape their temple, as if her life threatened her. He promised the Duke Wide that he would learn from Maya the cause of the escape by an unobtrusive conversation when they can make friends. But Raka said that he did not spend his time on this. He was going to recognize the truth from the girl. At the same time, Delcane found Maya in one of the castle's rooms. He wanted to know if the daughter-in-law had a good rest yesterday. The blonde told him that yes, and all this thanks to him. And after they began to discuss today's lesson in the history of Delcane, yawning with boredom, the boy told the nanny that he so knew all the material, but Aisha still had to study and study. Maya was alarmed by the fact that Aisha missed today's lesson, according to the brunette, and is also inattentive to study. The girl was afraid that this could be because of their misunderstanding yesterday, but Delcane assured her that Aisha was not angry. The blonde also learned from the boy that before Aisha and the Duke had never quarreled, and yesterday, because of her, happened for the first time. May would like to somehow reassure the girl, who, although she did not hold evil on them, was clearly upset yesterday. The nanny asked Delcane if he knew that his sister loved. After thinking a little, the boy said she loves meat, but in order to find out Maya what Aisha loved, except for meat, she had to fulfill one desire of Delcane. The blonde wanted to know in advance what he wanted to ask, but, smiling broadly, Delcane said that he would tell later. Nevertheless, the girl agreed to these conditions, although she was alerted by the behavior of Delcane, which was usually so innocent. The boy told the nanny that his sister loved flowers very much. Moreover, it did not matter which ones, she just liked everything. For a fair-haired, it was a pleasant surprise to find out that such a prankster like Aisha loved flowers so much. Then the girl asked if there was somewhere nearby, a place where they could collect a bouquet. He invited her to show him. Delcana brought the nanny on the flow of flowers, which was not far from the castle. This field gave Aisha for the birthday of the Duke. Maya was worried that they could not come here, because it was Aisha's property, but Delcane assured what could. But Aish herself was now impossible to come here. This was a punishment that she used magic unnecessarily. Squatting, the blonde began to defeat the flowers. Delcane shared that the girl's favorite flowers were here. After some time of zealous work, Maya collected a small and very beautiful bouquet of flowers for Aisha. She was very happy about what a good result she got, so she called Delcane so that he would admire. But without hearing anything in response to her words, Maya noticed that Delcane was no longer there, because of which she was scared. She began to call him louder, worried about every second more and more. He was not one of those who would leave and would not say a word. But I didn't have to worry for a long time, because the next moment a boy looked out of the bite, who did not leave anywhere. Maya's heart froze anxiously when she finally found Delcane. She pounced on him with a hug, already having managed to wind herself up that she had lost him, and the boy was trying to explain what he was doing. Delcane apologized. He wanted to scare the nanny a little, but did not want to force her to worry so much. When Maya calmed down a little, the brunette raised the beautiful wreath of flowers from the grass, with which he was busy all this time. The boy's hands were scratched with spikes. He spent a lot of effort on it, but was very pleased that he had made such a gift to the nanny. He was worried about the fact that the wreath did not look very neat, but hoped that his efforts were compensated. The blonde considered the gift to be insanely beautiful, and said that the boy's soul was even more beautiful than this wreath. Delcane was madly happy that the girl liked his gift. She leaned a little to him, and he put on her a wreath. True, he turned out to be a little big, so he fell from the girl's head to her shoulders, which Delkian did not expect. But the fair-haired winked at him and said that now it was not a wreath, but like a flower necklace on her neck. It was very difficult for the girl to believe that such a cute child in the future would mock the main character. While she was thinking about this, the girl caught herself thinking that during her stay in this world, she managed to forget how the romance ended. The boy wanted to know what the daughter-in-law thought about it, but she translated the topic and offered to make wreaths for him and Aisha. After some time, satisfied, Delcane and Maya gathered their flower products, came to the door of Aisha to give them. The girl did not go out to them for a long time, but then the nanny decided to resort to cunning and lure the girl, saying that they had a bouquet. Then some rustles were heard from behind the door. Apparently, the brunette became interested and went to the door. A sad girl looked out of the doorway, a little uncertainly, asking Maya about the bouquet for her. The fair-haired smiled Aisha and handed her a bright, beautiful bouquet. She did not want the girl to be angry and sad. Aisha carefully accepted the bouquet from the hands of the nanny, and she, having experienced a little for her reaction, asked whether he came to Aisha. The girl was so moved, so that tears began to do to her eyes involuntarily. She began to apologize for her behavior, but Maya did not think that Aisha was to blame. Then she also showed the girl a wreath that they weaved for her with Delcane. They put it on his brunette on their heads. She looked very happy, but at the same time very confused due to such a gesture. They all went into the room and crouched, and Aisha could not stop thanking his sister and Delcane for such a gift. Aisha admitted to them that she was quite sad to sit in the room alone. It was like a house arrest. Then, suddenly, in Maya's head, thoughts surfaced that something was said about the situation when Aisha seemed to be locked. But in the original story, both twins were punished for the persecution of the Rhine, the main character, and forever imprisoned in the tower. Reading the novel, Maya believed that they were criminals and suffered punishment for this. But did the children be made at the Rhine? Now, this whole situation seemed strange to the blonde, because it was difficult to imagine that the Gemini did something like that. Noticing how their nanny darkened, the children were alarmed, thinking that she was not good again and she had to relax. She hastened to convince the children that everything was in order with her. Yes, and yesterday too, although they thought differently. After that, Maya invited them to have lunch together, since the Duke was busy, and the children gladly agreed to this idea. True, the twins, habitually, began to quarrel because of all sorts of little things, but perhaps it was even good. Maya got into their skirmish and asked Delcane to apologize to her sister for the fact that during the dispute he insulted her. The embarrassed Delcane fulfilled the request of the nanny and apologized to his sister. She also calmed down that Maya pleased. Maya said they were both fellows. She was in a good mood, so she wanted to give them something as a praise. But instead of rejoicing in this, the children looked at her incomprehensibly, because of which Maya was a little confused. The children began to ask her what praise was, and whether it was something good, which completely drove the girl to a dead end. Then Maya explained to them that for something good, she would give them praise seals. For 10 liver, she will fulfill one their desire. The younger ones were delighted with such a proposal. No one had offered them this before, but now they were very happy. After some time, the 3 of them sat in the living room, and Maya watched with a smile how Aisha looked at the wreath in the mirror. She could not stop enjoying the gift. The girl turned to her brother and asked with a smile whether he considered her beautiful. Delcane, sitting on a chair, said that since this wreath was made by their daughter-in-law, of course he will go to the girl. Maya affectionately smiled at them and noticed for herself that in the future, it was worth more often to give children such small gifts. At that moment, Rita knocked on the room. She thought that the nanny had already left the twins, but she was glad that she found her here. Rita handed the girl that this evening the Duke was about to have dinner with the children and Maya. In addition, Raka said that hence, friends always uete to eat with him and children in the dining room. Maya was glad of this, but at the same time worried about the fact that Aisha and Raka would eat together, although they recently quarreled. When Rita left, Aisha ran to Maya and asked if she would really have dinner with them on this day. The girl confirmed, and this incredibly greatly pleased Aisha. So much so that she said that it was the best day in her life. But when the blonde told her that the Duke would join their meal, the brunette was upset and said that she did not want to. Aisha's mood changed sharply, and she said that if they are eaten with an older brother, then this day will be the worst. Maya tried to reassure her and said that the girl could not always eat separately from her brother. But no matter how the nanny tried to influence the youngest, Aisha asked her to pass on to the Duke that she was not going to have dinner with him. With a sigh, Maya admitted that then she would have to go to dinner together with Delcane. But before that, she decided to go to Raka. She knocked on his office, and he soon opened the door. The blonde told him that they had to talk about something very important. Raka invited her to enter the office and talk there, but the girl told him that the conversation was short enough. She handed over to the guy that Aisha refused to have dinner with him. It seems she was still angry with her brother. He said quite strictly that the girl should have thought of her behavior, and if she wants to eat, he will come. But the blonde did not agree with him and said that Aisha was not one of those who came himself, only because she was hungry. She reported that the girl only shouted a minute ago about what would not eat at all, so as not to see Raka. This was angry with the guy, so he decided to go to her and figure it out on his own, but Maya tried to stop him. She tried to explain to him that now it was not worth swearing and screaming at the frustrated Aisha, but he did not listen to her. Then the girl ran to him and grabbed his hand to stop, because in this way they only quarreled more. And the next instant, Maya realized that she made a mistake when she did not think Raku by the wrist. But from touch, the guy did not lose his temper. He remained the same angry and asked the girl to stay here. The girl was so confused that she forgot to let go of the guy's hand. Raka began to feel strange and asked Maya to wait. She tried to determine by the guy's reaction whether he had already lost his composure or not. She carefully called him by name. The guy told her not to contact him like that, because he felt that now it would have been crazy. He said that if earlier he immediately lost his mind from touch, now he could restrain himself, but obviously not for long. A few more moments passed, until Raka could no longer restrain himself, and Maya's forces began to influence him. The guy's face immediately softened, and he pressed the girl closer to him. He again lost control of himself. Trying to somehow distract the guy's attention from himself, Maya began to scream him, saying that, supposedly, he was whiter around him. The assistant was upset, thinking that now Maya was mocking him because of the sound of his surname, like the children. Maya assured him that this was not so at all, and Raka, meanwhile smiling, asked the breadth to leave the office. Since the girl could not just distract the guy, she specially stepped on the leg of Rake, thinking that this would help. But this did not help at all. Raka pulled her along, while singing something fun to himself. Then Maya decided that she could try to make a bandwidth. She needed him to let her go. At that moment, as if from nowhere, Aisha appeared. She was angry with Raku because he did not come to her. She ran to them, called Raku a bad brother, and also thought that he wanted to kiss the nanny instead of talking with her. At first, Maya did not understand why this girl decided that the Duke would kiss her, but then she realized how close they were. Having decided to take advantage of the situation, the blonde told Aisha that if she divides them, she would give the girl a laudable seal. Aisha began to delay Raku from Maya, and she motivated her by giving not one, but as many as 2 laudable seals. Then the girl decided to take advantage of black magic in order to probably cope, although she could be curled again for it. She wanted to share their hands with the help of magic, but, noticing this, the Duke himself let go of the girl, darkened. Aisha was surprised to notice that her intervention was not even needed, although she had just begun to conjure. Nevertheless, Maya, as promised, gave the girl 2 stamps of praise, because she still helped her with Raka. After all this, Raka took both girls to his office. Then, Maya suggested that Aintia finally make peace. Raka believed that then Aisha would become even more spoiled, and the girl simply did not want to forgive her brother and was angry. Maya mentally noticed to herself that Almoat apparently the only time when Raka was with the twins, during food. Then the blonde decided that this needs to be fixed. Tomorrow the twins just had no lessons. She asked the Duke if he would have a little free time tomorrow. He replied that he could free, if necessary. Having rejoiced at this fact, Maya then suggested that they go to the picnic and spend time together. Maya explained to them that a picnic is a sortie into nature, People take food with them and have fun in the company. Raka considered the picnic a rather useless occupation, but Aisha said that then they would go to the picnic without him. The girl considered her older brother not interesting, because he never went anywhere except for the flowers of Shakira. Then Raka rose from his table and decided to prove the opposite to them, agreeing to draw up a company on a picnic. He admitted that he really never took the younger ones somewhere just like that, and it was his fault. Maya was delighted that finally the atmosphere between Aintia became much better. She said that she would prepare everything for a picnic. Aisha asked the nanny to prepare that delicious potatoes that last time, and Raka took on the choice of a picnic place. Then the blonde suggested that they go to the dining room. Once they made peace, then finally they could calmly have dinner together. But Aisha, deciding that his brother, as always, would be busy with work, pulled the girl into the dining room and said that they would eat without him. Raka only looked after the runaway girls after the brunette decided everything for him and said goodbye. Already in the corridor, Maya asked the younger one, could they leave the Duke of One in this state there? The girl explained that usually the older brother did not eat when he was busy with something, and now he needed to choose a place for a picnic. On this, they finished the conversation, and after dinner. After the meal, Maya sat in the room, and she was a little bad because of the nerves. At that moment, they suddenly knocked on her room. Opening the door, she noticed that Raka was on the threshold. The Duke politely asked if Mayan was a little talk to him. Maya agreed, and after that, the Duke suddenly began to look closely, which surprised the girl in order. The fair-haired man was alert, and she asked the guy, "What's happened?" The guy replied that nothing, just here the smell that he usually heard from the nanny was too strong here. He said that this smell resembled the smell of Shakira's flower, and the guy felt much calmer from him. After Rock went into the room and sat on the nearest chair. He wanted to discuss something with the girl. He initially wanted to call Maya to him, but then he thought that it was dangerous late in the evening to call her so. The young man recalled that it was he who took responsibility to choose a place for a picnic, so he conducted a small study. With the help of magic, he materialized on the girl of the girl some books of fiction about picnics. He said that he learned from the books that some people spent picnics in the courtyard of his house. It was a good option for him. Then he could work and attend a picnic at the same time. Maya was surprised by the sub-proposal. Raka showed her a book in which such an option was just described, that Maya was indignant at, considering her strange. This book was generally a fairy tale, but the Duke explained that there were not so many books about picnics, so he relied on it. Then the girl noticed that other books that the guy brought had strange and boring names. Raka also said that after reading the books, he realized that the place for the picnic was not so important. He believed that the main thing is that they would just spend time together. Maya noticed that he apparently had never been on a picnic. The girl explained to him that going to the picnic was not only a vacation, but also training. They should not arrange him in the yard. She was sure that Aisha would also be unhappy. Gatherings in the yard were not like a good walk. Then Raka got angry that the book turned out to be such an useless advisor and even wanted to burn it. But Maya stopped him. She took the book from his hands and reassured that now they could prepare everything for a picnic together. The guy was angry because this meant to start training from scratch, but he had no other option. Then Maya said that they would not have to suffer with this for a long time, because the Duke knew the territory of the Grad Empire well. At Maya, he told her about one place with beautiful nature and historical attractions. Then they decided that they would go there on a picnic. Raka thought, and then admitted that Maya was well versed in the topic. Once with this, they finished. Maya asked him if they would sleep together. Her bed was too small for two. Then Raka said that he would sleep in an armchair next to her bed, and she will reach out to his hand to sleep. They did so. Falling asleep, Maya hoped that tomorrow on a picnic, they would all be in the same good mood. As it turned out, as a place for the rock picnic meant a dangerous forest, the source of black magic with all kinds of evil spirits. Often no one went into this gloomy place. It was quite frightening, but not for the Aintia family. The castle walked widely on the castle, thinking that perhaps Raka decided to arrange not a picnic to children, but the teaching of the development of courage. Nevertheless, Aintia, along with Maya, collected things early in the morning and went to a dangerous forest, not suspecting where they were going. When they were in place, Raka explained that it was this place with beautiful nature that he meant yesterday. Maya did not understand where there are historical attractions. Raka explained that the forest was a very ancient place. He smiled insidiously and said that it was in this forest that the black magic of the Antya family originated. The children were stunned. Maya began to hastily apologize to them and justify herself that she did not know where they were going. But the children did not scare the choice of the place at all, but on the contrary, he only delighted. They were wildly delighted and praised the elders. Then Maya calmed down and told Raki that the children really liked the place. He said that this is only thanks to her. Then the girl wanted to offer to finally get a job and lay out things, but a very large insect crawled past her legs. Maya was very afraid of such animals, so she immediately bounced aside in fright, dropping a basket out of her hands. She was so frightened by surprise that she did not notice how she lost her. And then she began to look around in search of a basket. It turned out that the girl accidentally threw her towards Raka. The basket rolled over and was now thrown over the guy's head. She began to apologize excitedly. Strawberry juice flowed down the face of Raka, which spilled when the basket rolled over. The girl wanted to help and wipe the Duke's face with a handkerchief, but he also ended up in a basket and was all down. Maya wanted to invite him to be wiped with her clothes, but Raka told her better not to get her sweaty. Raka assured her that everything was in order, but the girl felt awkward and uncomfortable because she could not correct the mistake. The guy sighed heavily and still took the sweater from the girl's hands. He wiped his face out of the edge of the sweater, succumbing to her persuasion. Maya noticed that Raka wiped not all the juice, so she took a sweater from him and decided to wipe the guy's face herself. Of course, she could not wipe everything, because in some places a sticky mark remained, but she tried to help as she could. She asked him to wait a dumb to wait. Maya wanted to walk and look around. Maybe there was some kind of lake nearby. But Raka turned sharply and told her that he himself would go and find the lake. He left so quickly that he forgot to take off his basket. The guy was very embarrassed due to the situation, and because Maya so carefully wiped his face from juice. When he left, Maya called Maya to her, who wanted to show her something interesting, which she would definitely be surprised. The girl pointed to some plant in a strange shape that was in her legs, and she greatly frightened Maya. She tried to understand what kind of monster it was, and Aisha, meanwhile, took the flower in her hands and joyfully said that he was even moving. Frightened by this even more, Maya knocked out a flower from the hands of a brunette, afraid that he could be dangerous. The face of the youngest immediately darkened. The blonde acted without thinking, and now hoped that Aisha would not begin to cry because of this. She hurriedly apologized and invited the youngest to go and together to tear out another such plant if she wants to. But Aisha said that this was not necessary, because her flower was still alive. Maya looked in the direction where she leaned back and noticed that the plant really barely moved, recovering. And now, after a moment, he began to scream piercingly. Aisha looked at him in dismay and admitted that this was not a flower. Maya heard some noise behind her back, and then someone excitedly shouted to them to run from here. It was Delcane's voice. In several large jumps, he reached the daughter-in-law and repeated his instructions to run rather. Without explaining to her, the boy told her to run as quickly as possible if she wants to survive, pulling her hand behind her. She realized that since the brunette was so desperately running away, then apparently someone was chasing them right now, and they were in danger. Behind them was the most frightening plant, which actually turned out to be a monster, which increased in size. Raka, meanwhile, walked through the forest, and a fragment of memory froze in his head when Maya wiped his face. The guy felt his face burned with embarrassment, and he could not understand why the girl had so much influenced him. He would like to know if he was the fault of her ability, that his heart was beating like a crazy when she was near. While walking, he came across a lake. There he washed. If Maya only replaced the Shakira flower, why was he not his own? Washing all the juice from his face, Raka went back to the younger and Maya, feeling that during this time he was able to recover. But on the way, he stumbled upon bushes with ripe sweet fruits, about which he remembered just at the same time. Looking at the bushes, the guy involuntarily remembered his observations and thought that Maya liked everything sweet. Then he decided that it would be nice to collect a little of these fruits for her. In addition, their basket was empty. He was so carried away that he did not notice how he collected a whole basket of fruit, and only then he stopped, thinking about his actions. The guy decided that he was still not in himself, since he had collected fruits for someone with whom he had only business relations. Suddenly, he heard some strange, loud sounds near the place where he was. The guy found out by the sounds that it was Lependes, the creature that spent most of the time hibernation. Why did it wake up? The only person who could touch this monster, Aisha. She must have woken up Lependes. He heard Maya's frightened cries and was alert, realizing that she was in danger. He had to help her. The Duke understood that the Gemini could take care of themselves, thanks to magic and his skills, but Maya needed protection. He wanted to rush to the help of the girl, but he heard that her voice began to approach and was heard from behind the bushes with fruits. The frightened Maya, excited and evil Delcane, as well as Aisha, that only glad with such adventures rushed in his direction, and right behind them, the same Lependi chased, which the Duke accurately determined by sounds. He gathered his thoughts and concentrated all his magic in the palm of one hand. It was necessary to deal with this rather, but Maya did not let him deal with the monster, grabbing him by the wrist. She worried about him and said that she had to leave. She was afraid that the guy could not control the monster, so she ordered him to leave with them. And in the meantime, the girl's forces began to act on Raku, so he obediently ran after her. He could have wanted to argue with her regarding this decision, but thought that running with Maya was not so bad. She asked him why he smiles so much and what to do now, to which he answered relaxedly that so far to run well. But due to the fact that Maya had been running quickly for a long time, she had almost no strength left. It was too hard. She said that she was so tired, as if she would die now, to which the Duke replied that she could not allow her to die. Then he first of all gave her a Korozinka, which all this time carried in his hands, and asked to hold her. After that, he closed his back with Maya and the twins, boldly imagining in front of the monster, protecting his family. Maya was surprised that, unlike the last time, now Raka himself released her hand without resisting. Did this mean that now they could calmly hold hands and not be afraid for the consequences of her strength? Raka focused on his magic and began to nourish his palms with dark energy, preparing to repulse the enemy. With one powerful blow, he directed his strength towards the monster, and he had no chance to survive after this blow of dark magic. This was enough to completely neutralize the distraught flower. Ashes and smoke began to fly in the air. Aisha praised the elder for how cool he stood up for them, and Delcane, meanwhile, was interested in Maya in order Li. Raka also asked her whether everything was fine. The blonde said that she was fine, only her magic surprised her a little. Tears came to Maya's eyes. She tried to calm down and find the strength in herself to recover. Noticing this, Aisha began to argue with Raka, because of which the priestess was scared. She said that because of magic, and he because of Lependes. In fact, the blonde must have just been very nervous because of this whole situation, which is why she was very tired. Raka also noticed this and directly asked the nanny how tired she was and whether she wants to relax. The girl admitted that she really was a little tired. This is probably due to the fact that she ran so quickly. Then Raka pointed to the basket that stood behind Maya. He invited her to eat the contents and calm her nerves. Maya was surprised, because she thought that the basket should be empty after that incident. But she raised her and found that this was not so. Inside, she found bulk yellow-orange fruits. She asked Raka that it was, because she had never seen such people. The guy invited her to try first. He said that it was a very rare fruit, which could only be found here. Maya worried that he might be poisonous, because they were still in a dangerous forest with black magic. Then, Raka decided to be the first to prodigate the fetus to prove to the girl that he was not dangerous. The guy bit off a part from him, and then Maya asked him to spit out the fruit, because she still thought that he could be poisoned. Nevertheless, Maya also followed the example of the Duke and threw the fruit into her mouth. Oddly enough, she was not poisoned, and she liked it. The guy smiled pretty much and said that he was right when he suggested that she liked the sweet. The girl was surprised that he paid attention to this, and the guy said that he thought about it when she ate all the cookies. While they were talking, Raka, out of the corner of his eye, noticed that the twins who remained unattended climbed a tree. This tree was not ordinary and not safe, so the Duke asked the priestess to wait and decided to bring the children. And Maya, meanwhile, thought about the fruits that the Duke brought her. The blonde really liked their taste. The Duke was right. So, thanks to Rake, she learned about her taste preferences and thought about it when they returned to the castle. While they were driving home in a carriage, the Gemini fell asleep quickly enough, tired of an interesting and intense day. For some time, an awkward silence reigned in the carriage. Neither Raka nor Maya found what to say to each other. The first silence was the first to break the dark-haired. He asked Maya, wasn't it difficult for her to manage the twins? She thought and admitted that it was hard. But since they liked her, she suited her at work. The girl jokingly suggested whether Raka was really worried about the fact that she would get tired, throw everything and go to another place. The guy was alert and asked her. Maya asked, wasn't this a possible option when you are very tired of work? Suddenly, for a girl, this dialogue angered a guy. He looked at her with an angry, prickly look and said that she would not leave. Girls ran through the body of the girl, and the heart fell into the heels. She has not seen the Duke so frighteningly evil for a long time. The guy did not continue this conversation, dissuading that he was rocked, and asked the remaining way to shut up. The girl decided not to attach any importance to this, thinking that he was rocking due to dark magic. Maya was a dream. She herself did not notice how quickly she fell asleep. And the Duke, not wanting her to hit her head on the case, held her hand. The guy's cheeks were inflamed with scarlet. He could not take his eyes off the sleeping girl, feeling his heart beat quickly. The girl does not recognize this, which means he could not worry due to the fact that she somehow would not interpret his actions so much. The next day in the morning, Maya was lying on the couch in her room. She is terribly tired yesterday, she grumbled, because she had to go on a picnic on her weekend, and now she had to go to work again without resting. On this day, the twins planned to engage in fencing in the training parade ground. Why is it an occupation on the street today? At that moment, Rita ran into her room. She asked why the nanny was sitting so hunched and all the windows were closed. The girl replied that she simply had no strength to get up. Then the maid winked at her and said that she would ventilate the room. She did not want the nanny to sit locked and depressed. Therefore, full of enthusiasm, opened the window. That's just on the street instead of the sun that she expected to see. It was very heavy and a cold wind blew. Maya only made it happy because she thought that in such weather, she would not have to go anywhere and the children would be at home. Thoughts of the luck and mercy of God reminded her of the territory. Why haven't there any news from him for so long? She thought that since Tritos disappeared so long, he deceived her and would not bring her any promised relic. The maid inquired the nanny that, despite the rain, there would be a lesson, because soon the twins have a fencing competition. It was a huge event that took place every 2 years. Young fencers had the opportunity to fight with each other. The blonde thought about why she did not remember anything about this event in the novel. Was it before Reina met Kinesi? Although Maya's first blessing was in some way the past of Kinisus, and this moment she remembered that it was strange. But then the girl dawned that the original story had not yet begun, because Maya had to die in a year. She wanted to believe that the story will begin at the moment when she works out still planned 4 months and leave. After some time, Maya helped the children gather and brought them to the place where they usually studied with the coach. There, Raka was already waiting for them. He wanted to check how the twins advanced preparations for competitions and look at sparring. Maya asked in surprise if the children would be sparked. They confirmed and began to argue about who would win. Raka did not want to continue to listen to their meaningless disputes, so he sent the children to prepare for the beginning of classes. Maya was worried about the fact that children could get wet, but they told her not to worry and assured that they would not get cold. And yet, no matter how they reassured her, she could not but worry and not take care of them. Then Raka, looking at the children, told Maya that he was more worried about her health on this day than for the health of the guys. He put his palm on Maya's forehead to make sure she felt good. Still, she was more fragile. The guy was relieved that the girl had no heat. He was glad that her condition was in order. Raka admitted that the maid in the morning told him that Maya did not feel it, noticing how tired the girl was. The brunette asked her not to hide from him if something was sick. He did not want her to go through her ailments alone. The girl told him that she was in order. She just had muscles because she ran a lot yesterday. Raka said that it was very bad that Maya was so weak, but she was sure that it was just ain't resilient. While they were talking, the Gemini prepared for the lesson and shouted to them that Patrash was also ready for sparring. Maya did not know anything about their classes, so she thought that Patrash was about such a breed of a dog. But Patrash Pavlov was responsible for learning the fencing of the twins. It was a tall, strong, red-haired man. The girl was very amused by such a funny name for such a serious man, and she barely restrained her laughter. Raka invited her to go inside to look together at how the twins would be engaged. Suddenly, Maya asked Raku why he had no umbrella. He said that he was just expecting Zhizdob to end soon. Then the girl, who did not want the brunette to get wet even more, suggested that he go to the parade ground under her umbrella. This proposal was very embarrassed by the guy, but caused reverent pleasure in his chest, so he happily agreed. At the same time, a clear sun shone over the imperial palace of the Grade. Rain did not get there yet. One of the assistants of Canes was interested in him whether the emperor had already seen a list of participating in the fencing tournament. But the guy had not yet looked through the list. He had more important things. The Shakira flower disappeared, and God's daughter disappeared. This whole situation drove him crazy, and he could not sleep. Where could this brave girlfriend abuse? But the assistant came to the emperor with good news. Recently, he received information about a girl who knew how to euthanize. But they talked that the Duke of Antia also found out about this, so it did not look like the fact that the hearing would be true. Kinev thought that the assistant is right. Even if the Duke found out about this, then the hearing was clearly deceitful. The Duke of Antia never did anything just like that. Kines asked the servant, "Was this girl from the gossip of the saint?" The guy replied that in order to find out, he would need to conduct an additional investigation. However, this news was good. And now the blonde could worry about other important things. The emperor looked at the list of participants, and with a smile noted that the children hooligans of the Antia family also signed up for the competition. The blonde suggested that the children wanted to win the tournament to get a new title. There they first show up to the public. There was also another name on the list that interested the young man, and he poked a finger at him, asking the participant about this. The assistant said that it was Cray Monteris, the terrible son of Count Monteris. He was a candidate for first place. However, people called him a psycho, and very unflattering discussions went around this guy. Then the emperor suggested in the first round to reduce the monitor with the young Mr. Antia. Not so long ago, he heard the testimonies of the knights who were beaten in the forest, and he suggested that it was the Antia family. The assistant said that the readings of the knights were inaccurate, but Kinesu was enough to find out the Duke in the description. Be that as it may, they had to be more careful. In addition, they knew that Delcane could not use dark magic. The emperor personally wanted the young Mr. Antia to forever remain in the shadow of his family. Meanwhile, the occupation of the twins has already begun, and Patrash, in a low, bass voice, announced the beginning of the duel. Aisha did not hesitate, and the first went into battle, exposing her training sword. Maya immediately noticed that Aisha was very strong. Did this mean that Delcane would lose to her? But after a moment, Maya took her words back. The guy was very dexterous, and without lagging behind his sister, entered the battle. Looking at the struggle of the twins, the girl asked the Duke, who, in his opinion, had a chance to win. The guy said that Aisha had more chances in a long match, and in the short, they were both equally terrible. Aisha threatened his brother, saying that he did not think to somehow deceive her, and Delcane was tired of waiting when she finally attacks. The children tried very hard to prove themselves well in battle, because Maya watched them, and they both wanted to appear from the best side. The girl smiled at them, and it was quite interesting for her to watch the diligence of the Gemini train. Delcane went into an intensive attack, and Aisha, reflecting her, said that the stronger the brother attacks, the more he had a chance to fall. But at that moment, while the brunette spoke, the boy acted smartly and put a footboard to his sister, because of which she lost her balance. Her body immediately leaned back too much, and she did not have time to figure out anything when she had already fallen to the ground. Delcane, meanwhile, put his sword to his sister's throat, completely blocking her possibilities of retreat. Patrash loudly proclaimed that Delcane won, which the boy was very happy, smiling rather to his sister. Aisha immediately stated that she had lost her brother only because of the rain, and at the competitions she would win away. But Delcana immediately upset her, saying that Aisha would have no one to try, because the daughter-in-law would not go to the tournament. This very upset the girl. She began to beg the elders so that Maya would go with them, but they did not agree. The fencing tournament was a fairly large-scale event, and that is why the blonde could not go to him. It was an important event, so Emperor Kenize was supposed to be there, which posed the threat of Maya. She knew that if she was seen in a similar place, then the guard would quickly recognize her and immediately grab her. When they returned to the castle, the Maya walked along the corridor and thought that Aisha was very upset because of this. The tournure was supposed to be in 2 days, which meant that tomorrow the twins also had to have a training. To somehow support the younger, the girl decided to cook her juice, the one that she then cooked on a picnic. The cook, who was in the kitchen, asked Aisha liked this juice, but Maya said that she could not try it. The chef tried her drink and said that Aisha should like it, because the carrots in it almost did not feel. And the apple? Yes. The girl smiled radiantly to the man and thanked him for such generous compliments in her direction. At that moment, Raka entered the kitchen and asked Maya, "What is happening here?" The maid advised him to look into the kitchen, and the guy became interesting because he never saw Rita so excited. Not only Maya, but also other workers who were in the kitchen were surprised at how the Duke suddenly appeared. The girl told Brunette that she was busy cooking vegetable juice for Aisha for tomorrow. Raka asked, "For what?" She replied that she just wanted to, and assured that those present in the kitchen had nothing wrong. The guy's face became serious and gloomy. Why did Maya try so hard about everything? Is Aisha really not indifferent to her? Usually, no one wanted to deal with the twins, so the manifestations of care and attention from Maya very much surprised him. The brunette said that Maya was not obliged to try so much. She had to simply do the work that the nanny was supposed to. Maya told him that Aisha looked depressed all day, so she wanted to do it just from myself, out of work. From the dark-haired body, goosebumps ran from this affectionate voice. He specified, "Have you just wanted to do it?" The girl confirmed. She was a little worried. Why suddenly the Duke became so distant and silent? She completely did not understand the reaction of the Duke, but decided that it was better to get out of the kitchen as soon as possible, until he himself drove it away. The girl quickly gathered all the bottles of juice into the basket, and the cook served her last from the next table. As a gratitude, Maya wanted to give the man a little juice left, but the Duke said that he himself would drink him. He took the bottle from the girl's hands and quickly devastated the contents in large sips, savoring juice. The workers were quite surprised at the pleasure and greed the guy dealt with the drink. Maya could not understand why, but Raka had a very bad mood. Apparently, he was a fairly sensitive person. She thought that Brunette could become better from sweets, so she offered him her own bottle of juice. Maya told him that the juice was sweet, as she added honey there. She hoped that it would cheer him up. The guy's mood changed sharply, and he settled a bottle of juice on the table, which the blonde handed him. He cast a strict look in her direction, and coldly, almost menacingly, ordered him to remove him from the table. After that, Raka hastened to get out of the kitchen and quickly left there, without explaining his sharp behavior. Maya suggested that he simply did not like the taste, and the workers noticed that their Duke is clearly interested in May. The rest of the time passed quite calmly, and now the day came when fencing competitions were supposed to come. Even Maya eventually had to go, because Delcane made a desire for Maya to go to the competition with them. This was the very desire that she promised them for praise. She thought she would make him later, but no. The blonde begged him to make another desire to make him, because she had good reasons to disagree, but he did not retreat. The boy reminded her that she taught them to always fulfill her promises. Therefore, she had no other choice. The children rejoiced that their plan worked, and Maya was in a panic, because if she was caught, then she went to the temple. Raka, who made her company in the stands, advised her to never agree to fulfill their desires. The only relief was that there were much more blondes with blue eyes in the stands than she thought. She hoped that in this case she would not be caught. She corrected the cloak, but Raka prevented her. Dark capes with hoods needed them in order to play it safe and not get into trouble. It seemed to Parm that Maya wanted to take a cloak, so he interrupted her, but the blonde told him that she was not going to. She irritably reminded him that she was not a child. She, too, did not want her to be caught and returned to the temple. In response to this, Raka did not tell her anything, and an awkward silence hung. She seems to be in vain to him. But after a few moments, the guy spoke to her again. He wanted to ask the blonde about something. The brunette asked her why she escaped from the temple. He hoped that they became close enough for her to admit him. The novel said that after the second blessing of Cain's, Maya's life was completely collapsed. She knew that Raka knew how to keep secrets. But could she tell him the truth and not be afraid for her life? Noticing that the girl was somehow silent, and suspiciously silent, Raka wanted to know what was the reason for this. The blonde already wanted to tell him the truth, but someone in the stands joyfully announced that the emperor had arrived at the competition. All people began to push and squeeze closer to the main arena, because everyone wanted to look closer at the emperor. Maya took advantage of the pretext that the competitions would begin soon, and drew from an uncomfortable conversation with Raka. She also ran to the edge of the stands, looking over the shoulders of people on her socks, wanting to look at Cain's. She continued to break through, although she was afraid to fall under the hot hand of those who argued for the best places. Then Raka approached her and offered to take his hand. He wanted to help her climb higher and consider everything. Maya was embarrassed to agree to this, but at that moment, some person shoved her in the back, and she could not resist her feet. The girl staggered and almost fell forward. But in time, she grabbed the reliable and strong hand of Raka. The guy was angry at the one who hit him as a friend and commented, "It seems they want to die, so they lost their minds." Trying to distract and reassure the brunette, Maya drew his attention to the fact that now they could clearly see the emperor. The way the fair-haired Chinese looked incomparable on a luxurious throne helped Maya to make sure of the strength of the protagonist. She could not help but admit that this young man was really very beautiful. His beauty was felt even at a distance. The brunette asked her, did she not avoid His Majesty all this time? Maya confirmed and asked why he was asking. The guy immediately turned away and coldly asked not to take his question about kidnaps. He was clearly jealous of her attention. Meanwhile, the Gemini already put on their uniform and could not wait for the start of the tournament. Aisha was happy, and Delcane looked at the sword. He twisted him in his hands and noticed something strange in him, so he asked Aisha to lend him her sword for a while. Aisha gave, but asked why his brother needed him. Delcane told her that he wanted to check something. He compared both of their swords with each other and noticed that the handle of his sword was very shaken, and Aisha was all right. Delcane went to the judges to exchange the sword. But how could they even allow a broken sword for a fencing tournament? It seemed no less suspicious to him that the judges could not change his sword, because they had no reserve. When the emperor reported that the young Mr. Entia noticed a malfunction of the sword, he only smiled mockingly. It also seemed curious to him that despite this, the boy did not refuse to participate in the competition. However, no matter how good the skills of Delcane were, can he defeat the son of the Count of Monteris? This moment involuntarily reminded Hinasus the moment when he first met these naughty twins in his life. At that time, the past Duke and the Duchess were missing, so he went to the mansion to assess the situation. There he first met the twins when he arrived to talk to Raka. Two pairs of purple eyes looked at him, which shone frighteningly, which is not typical for people. The emperor understood that these children could not grow weak, but the Monitoris was very talented, which intrigued. The emperor asked his assistants if they saw Senior Aintia. They said that they did not see the duke's carriage. The blonde thought that the duke, who cared so much about the Gemini, could not help but come on such a crucial day. Having examined the rostrum with the attentive gaze, the scarlet eyes of the ruler caught on the figure of a man in which he recognized the duke. He noticed that, as expected, the dark duke specially wanted to hide, hiding in a cloak, and next to him, some girl was sitting in the same cloak. Who could argue the duke for such an event? The first battle was already going through, and Maya was very happy that Aisha defeated her opponent in an instant. The brunette boredly noticed that it was just the enemy to be weak, but Maya told the duke that he would praise her. Now, it seems, the blonde realized why the children were still waiting for her praise. The older brother did not encourage them at all. Maya proved to him that in order to praise the child, it was enough that she coped well with everything. Rake should simply praise his younger sister. This could give her motivation in a new battle. The duke, enchanted by the charm of the blonde, could not disagree with everything that she told him and proved. Meanwhile, a new battle has already begun in the arena. None other than Delcane came out on the battlefield. Maya was delighted, because she was very waiting for the appearance of a boy in the arena and wanted to see what he was capable of quickly. The judge announced Delcane when he went out and carefully looked around a huge number of people in the stands. When the enemy of the dark-haired one entered the arena, the commentator announced the beginning of the competition between the boys. Delcane exposed his sword and confidently squeezed it in his palms, expecting actions from his enemy. But not having to put it on for a long time, the brunette decided to attack the first, confidently rushing forward. But the son of the count, Cray, confidently rejected the boy's attack, repulsing his sword of his sword. Maya was ill for the boy from the stands, praising Delcane and supporting him, although he could not hear her. But suddenly, the girl noticed that Delcane seemed to be upset by something. It was visible from his sad face. Also, from her gaze, the fact that for some reason the blade of the boy's sword was very staggering and trembled. In just a moment, after an intensive attack of the enemy, the sword slipped out of the handle of the sword Delcane. Maya was very disturbed. Not understanding why this happened, she was worried about the safety of the boy. The brunette himself, although he knew about the malfunction of his sword, did not expect that he would break so quickly in his battle. Due to the fact that the blade was bounced, Delcane cut off. Maya said Rocky about this, but he tried to calm her down. Although the guy tried to convince her that this was not a serious injury, he was no less worried about his younger brother. Then the blonde tried to calm him down and took Rack by the hand. She assured him that the boy would cope with everything. It helped Rocky calmly exhale. She was sure that Delcane could cope with this situation. She asked the Duke no more to worry so much, but the brunette could not help but be angry with the insolent, the enemy of Delcane. Raka tried to pull himself together and headed in an unknown direction, promising Maya that he would return to her soon. Maya could not understand what she had to do in this situation at all. Stop the battle? Find out where the Duke went. Meanwhile, Delcane, who was wounded by his hand, urgently decided how to go further in battle. He could take advantage of the chance and steal a weapon at Cray, but he was too strong for such a trick. At this moment, just the enemy weakened the vigilance and invited Delcane to surrender, which he decided to use. When Cray attacked a boy with a weapon to win a final victory, Delcane was ready. He was not going to give up so easily, which means he should have found a weakness of the opponent as soon as possible. But right at that moment, Aisha ran out into the arena, who was angry with Kreas for attacked an unarmed person. Aisha, who was breaking away from a sense of anger and injustice, decided to take advantage of magic to teach a lesson. She gathered in her palms a frightening clot of dark energy and directed this magic wave right at the enemy. He did not have time to react, and the next moment, the whole arena flooded the smoke, which was formed later on the magical explosion. Delcane, trying not to breathe this caustic smoke, shouted at his sister, "Aisha, are you crazy?" And then the brunette noticed that behind him was an older brother, who was just coming to pick him up. Raka smiled condescendingly and asked the younger, "Is your hand okay?" Delcane told him that the cut was not deep, so he was in order. Raka stroked his head and praised for the battle. The eldest told him that he was here with everything, and Delcane, meanwhile, could go and relax in the carriage. Raka explained to him that since Aisha burst into battle, they could consider this a disqualification for both. The brunette was not upset, but very surprised. He wanted to tell Raka something else, but he asked to do as he asked. When Delcane went to the exit, he heard some kind of noise behind his back. It was a cruising, but the boy could not understand this. Meanwhile, Maya was still in the stands, right in the center of the excited crowd. No one understood what happened. Unfortunately, the blonde could not even go anywhere, because then Raka could not find her when she returns. While she was standing in the stands and waited for the Duke's return, she noticed that one of the Imperial Knights looked at her, and after a moment she noticed that he not only looked at her, but also began to approach her. That's why she had a bad foreboding. It was worth returning to the carriage. There she could wait for the rest of Aintia. She wanted to run away, but at the same moment the knight already got to her and grabbed the girl tightly by the wrist. Maya instantly strained, hoping for the best, but realized that now she could be expected by the most unpleasant outcomes of the event. Nevertheless, the guy did not look threatening. He just stopped Maya and asked to devote a little time to him. Maya was not going to take risks, so she said that she was simply in a hurry, so she could not speak. Then, the knight did not detain the girl, but simply asked at least to find out her name and who she was. Evil from the answer, the blonde asked the young man. Isn't it for you to introduce yourself? Taking advantage of the moment, when the guy thought, Maya, that there was a spirit, rushed away in the opposite direction. She was very lucky that there were a lot of people in the stands. It was an ideal place to escape. Maya ran out of the arena and thought that she should go to the carriage soon, but noticed something strange aside. Some people discussed the boy who suffered at the tournament. They said that Delcane was wounded to blood. And then Maya noticed in the crowd already the brunette itself. She called him and immediately excited ran in his direction. Delcane looked at her with wide eyes, and with his palm squeezed his wound to stop bleeding. Maya wanted to take care of the younger, and rather take him out of here, so she grabbed him in her arms and went to the carriage. This was very embarrassed by Delcane, but the girl did not let him go. They went to the carriage so as to break away from the pursuer. Delcane followed the knight, and if he walked on the right side, he told Maya to go to the left, and so on. They quickly reached the carriage, and inside they could already feel in relative safety. Then Maya began to worry about the younger wound, but he assured her that it was a shallow cut, which would heal soon. And after a moment, the doors to the carriage opened again. It turned out to be Raka, who had talked with Aisha along the way. Raka did not expect to see Maya inside, so he was going to go to look for her. But suddenly, Maya greeted him. She told Brunei that he came just in time. The guy tried to understand what the girl was doing here. Aisha looked out from her brother and was also delighted that she finally could see her sister again. The girl climbed to sit next to the nanny and began to joyfully discuss the results of her battle with her. The carriage set off, and the twins along the road, characteristic of them, again began to quarrel due to nonsense. Aisha was worried about her brother. Meanwhile, the emperor was in a good mood. He would never have thought that the duke would dare to go to the stadium. After Kahines, he asked his knight Vyogo whether he followed Raka's companion. He admitted that he had missed her. Veho said that this is not an ordinary girl, and quickly ran away. Hines remembered that God's daughter was called weak. The emperor was already completely convinced that it was not a saint, but Vyogo shared one strange feature. He told Emperor Kinisu that that blonde had a very pure blue eye. He definitely saw it. In the evening, Maya and Delcane spoke in her room and discussed the wound of Delcane and his further treatment. The blonde was worried, because he lost a lot of blood, but the wound was not serious, and he had to get better quickly. Then Raka translated the conversation and said that Delcane mentioned with him that Maya was pursued by a knight at the stadium. She said that this is so. The knight wanted to know who she was. Then the duke asked if she remembered how he looked. Maya said that the guy was dressed in armor, and he had a big scar around his mouth. Raka guessed who it was. The brunette was not sure of this for sure, but he suggested that she was haunted not by an ordinary guard, but by an assistant to the emperor. Maya instantly covered a panic. Why did he personally want to know who she is? But Raka reassured her and said that he would take care of everything. The blonde reassured herself that no one had yet recognized who she really was, so she decided to trust the duke. Since she had Raka, he had to, under the terms of the contract, help her in every possible way and protect her from getting into the temple. The next morning, Maya woke up with a pleasant realization that she slept well enough and felt good. She drew attention to the fact that Raka had already left. He always woke up earlier in the morning and went to work. The girl went out onto the balcony to breathe fresh air and lazily thought that it was worth being more hardworking. With little surprise, she noticed something interesting in the yard. There was Delcane again, as the last time. Maya warned the maid that she would not be left out of the castle, not explaining to her the exact goal of her walk. Delcane sat in the garden on his knees in front of the grave of his pet, whom he buried here himself not so long ago. He completely did not notice how the daughter-in-law unexpectedly approached him and asked with a smile, "What are you doing here?" Instead of answering the question, he asked how she found out about this place. She said that her windows are facing this place. Then she repeated her question again, wanting to find out what he was doing. Delcane lied that he was just playing with mud, but Maya did not go to this, because she knew the reason very well. She asked him, "Is it true that something was buried in the ground?" The boy asked where she knew, and the girl admitted that she simply saw the last time he buried something. Then Delcane admitted that here he buried Puiri, a pet of the twins who recently passed away. The boy said that he gave Puiri what he liked: stones with moss, bones, poisonous mushrooms, but the pet did not respond. Maya surprised it. Could the pet die just because of such strange preferences in food? Delcane said that the pet was always ridiculously wandering around in a circle, so they gave him what he wanted. But after Raka saved him, Puiri did not return at all the way they remembered him. Delcana noticed this. Maya returned to them Raku after salvation is the same, but Raka Puiri could not. Delcane held on to him to the last as a fool. The nanny sat down next to the younger and asked if he buried him. Delcane confirmed her words. He asked Maya not to tell Aisha that he buried Puiri. Maya asked why he wanted it. The brunette said that she liked the new Puiri even more, because he was not so loud and more interesting. Therefore, he decided to specially bury it in the backyard of the extension, which, however, Maya herself noticed. She looked at the boy and thought about how much he loved Puiri, which constantly visited him. At that moment, the girl realized that she had never seen Delcane crying. He always kept calm. Outwardly, he looked as if everything was in order, but she understood that in his soul, everything was completely wrong. At that moment, she became very sorry for the boy, so she, without saying anything, enclosed him in her strong arms. She supported him and said that thanks to Delcane, Puiri will now be in a good place. She knew how hard he was. Tears appeared in front of the boy's eyes. He was tired of seemingly strong, so the hugs of the nanny became the last drop for him. He felt that he could finally exhale and hugged her back. He asked Maya not to leave them with a trembling voice. Delcane did not want to lose her like Puiri, so Maya gave him a promise that she would never leave him. Another exhausting day passed, and only at night Maya finally could lie down to relax. She leaned back on the soft pillows and thought that so many things have happened lately. Suddenly, she caught herself thinking that she was so tired that she had a desire to drink. She thought that she said to herself, but it turned out that she heard Rita in the room out loud. Then Maya asked her if she could find a bottle of alcohol for her. The maid said that this is not a problem. Rita was sure that the cook would gladly give her a bottle, so she went to the cellar to bring her. Soon enough, Rita fulfilled her request. Maya thought that a lot of time has passed since she drank the last time. She poured one glass of a tart drink and enjoyed it with pleasure. It was pleasantly relaxed after a hard day. At that moment, someone knocked on the room and Raka entered inside. He wanted to know what she suddenly decided to drink. She admitted that she felt a little depressed. Raka asked if someone had mocked her. He was worried about her and reminded that he would not forgive anyone who would dare to offend his man. Maya's thoughts hooked on the last words of the guy. Did this mean that now it belonged to the Duke of Antia? Suddenly, the guy took a full glass of her hands and also drank a little alcoholic drink. It was the last glass of the bottle. The guy twisted a glass in his hand and said that they would need another bottle. But alcohol is weaker. Maya said she was not worth it. Then Raka poked her finger on her forehead and said not to speak like that with an expression of such regret on his face. This action was very embarrassing Maya, but Raka did not pay attention to it and went to the cellar for another bottle. When Raka returned, they sat down at the table and discussed the fact that Delcane was crying today before Maya. She said that the boy always pretended that everything was in order, but one could notice that he was very bad. Then the brunette will offer them with the children to make a sortie. Then Delcane could feel better, and Maya cheer up. She really liked this idea. Raka invited them to go along the back streets of the city and take its knights with them to protect. They agreed that the next day, Maya, along with the children, would go to the city for a walk and breathe fresh air. She smiled affectionately and honestly admitted that she liked this side of the Duke. He could be very kind. The guy did not expect to hear such a compliment in his direction so suddenly, so he blushed and was confused. In order to somehow avoid this topic, he said that Maya was already enough to drink, because he thought she was saying this because of the wine. She wanted to drink more, but Raka said that in this case she would suffer from a hangover the next day. The girl tried to pick up the glass from the Duke's hands, but she could not do it accurately, and they dropped him. The glass with a bang fell to the floor, crashing from the fall from such a height. It's good that neither Raka nor Maya suffered. The wine stained the floor in red, spilling with puddles, and small fragments of glass lay around it. But the first assessment of the situation was wrong, and Maya noticed that she nevertheless cut her hand on the fragments. The cut was frivolous, so Maya did not attach importance to this, but the blood made a strange effect on Raka. He instantly became bad, and a strange atmosphere of dark magic thickened around. The Duke hastened to close his nose. The girl did not understand how such a strange reaction of the young man was caused. He closed his nose because it smelled badly. She assured him that the last time she joked when she said that she would not wash. She took a shower every day. But that was not the case, and the guy told her about it. Then Maya wanted to know from him a real reason, but instead of answering the question, Rock suddenly squeezed her wrist strongly, approaching the girl closer. Maya peered into his face, trying to understand why he suddenly began to behave so strangely. Despite the fact that there was no physical contact between them, Raka lost control of himself and touched the cut with his lips. He with pleasure licked a drop of protruding blood from her wrists. Apparently, it was she who influenced him so strangely. The guy's lips stained red. He was clearly pleased with his deed, and he also completely liked her taste. And then, after a moment, the guy became very bad. He fell on her, losing consciousness, the earth left under his feet. The girl was surprised to realize that Raka fell asleep in a standing state, right in her arms, in just a few seconds. It was difficult, but Maya managed to convey the Duke to his bed after that and put him to sleep more conveniently. Maya got up next to the bed and gave herself a couple of minutes to catch her breath and calm down. The guy through a dream began to pull the buttons on his shirt. Should a blonde help him? Was he stuffed? She was a little shy about this, but, nevertheless, sat down on the edge of the bed and decided to unfasten his shirt a little. Maya carefully unbuttoned the upper 3 buttons with her thin fingers, trying not to wake the Duke. The last button was most difficult to deal with. Maya was also very embarrassed, because she felt a pervert. Suddenly, Raka, still in a strong dream, grabbed the girl in an armful of his hands and rolled over on his side. The guy hugged her tightly through a dream, clutching to his chest. Maya felt her face swiftly blushing. Realizing that Raka would not let her go, Maya decided to lie calmly so as not to do something rash and not to worsen the situation. Maya still could not be sure of the reason for such an old behavior by the Duke, but she guessed that he was so influenced by the appearance and smell of her blood. Maybe there were still any abilities in her abilities? They overslept in this position all night, and in the morning, as always, Rita, who brought Nanny breakfast, entered the room. She stunned in the doorway when she saw that next to Maya on the bed was a Raka just waking up. The irritated Duke ordered the maid to leave the cookies on the table faster that she brought and leave the bedroom. The girl did not have to repeat twice. She immediately left, leaving one guy to remember what happened last night. The moment surpassed the moment when Raka lost consciousness from Maya's blood. He remembered that he was drinking her blood. Now he was very ashamed of his behavior. Why did he only behave so strangely? He did not control himself. Even at the moment when he absorbed her blood, it seemed to him that his black magic had disappeared. He still felt that his forces had not yet returned to his body completely. Raka thought that if it was tense, he could use dark magic, but his energy was still not enough. Did this mean that he had to refuse black magic in order to feel normal? Unfortunately, there was still something to protect Rake, so he could not sacrifice his own for his health. The longer he was without contact with Maya, the faster the forces that block his black magic disappeared. It was a temporary effect. The blonde was still sleeping peacefully nearby, without even suspecting what the Dark Duke was thinking about now. Raka thought that he should constantly contact with Maya in order to improve his condition. The guy admired the sleeping blonde and gently stroked her palm on the head, fingering golden strands between his fingers. Should he keep this girl now next to him until the end of his life in order to be happy? The guy sat with her for some more time and then left. When Maya woke up, she was in a terrible mood. She was evil, because almost a week has passed since the territory has promised to bring her a magic relic. Just at the moment when she was thinking about it, the fair-haired heard that someone scratched her door outside. Maya immediately guessed that this was a territory, because he was the only one who could make such sounds in their castle. When she opened the door, she saw a territory in front of her in the guise of a well-fed red cat. She called him a pig. It seemed to her at first because of the appearance of God, but after he was offended, she realized that she was mistaken. He entered the room with an important gait and sat on her bed. Tritos asked, "Didn't she love cats since she reacted like that?" Maya said that she loved. She just had never met such chubby cats before. Tritos invited her to touch him. The girl happily took a heavy cat in her arms, feeling how soft and fluffy he was. God was satisfied. She wanted to comment on his weight, but quickly emerged. Noting that God was not offended at her almost again, Maya put him on her knees, and while she stroked his back, Tritos said that she had found an artifact for her. He indicated somewhere in an uncertain filling, because of which Maya could not immediately understand where this very artifact was. But then Tritos told her to look at his tail. Indeed, on the tip of the tail, a small ring hid under the hair. The girl estimated the size of the eye and said that the ring would be too large for her, but the cat insisted on trying on. As soon as Maya put him on her hand, the ring immediately decreased to the size of her finger. This ring was supposed to exclude a strange, in-love reaction of people to it, but Maya was supposed to be careful with him. The cat was afraid that they would be caught, but Maya told him that Raka would not come today. A pity, she wanted to check the action of the ring. At that moment, the younger Aintia flew into the room without a knock. She wanted to know if tomorrow they would go for a walk. Tritos wanted to condemn Aisha for the lack of manners, but Maya closed his mouth. He himself said that everyone heard him today. Aisha took the cat in her arms and asked the animal to repeat that she had just tried to tell her. She heard everything. After that, the brunette returned the cat to the girl. Maya tried to convince her that Aisha was heard, and the cat did not speak. The girl frowned. She said that she had heard that the cat said that she had no manner. Maya insisted on her own and reminded the girl that cats do not know how to speak, but only meow. Tritos was angry at them. He did not like such an appeal, so he released his claws, and Maya shouted at him, saying that he would not do that. Misha, meanwhile, did not pay attention to Maya's attempts to convince her. She all echoed the belief that the cat said. Leaving the blonde to deal with the child on his own, the red cat jumped off the nanny's knees and retired in several jumps. Not wanting to stay here anymore, the cat with lightning speed reached the balcony of the room and fled, wagging his tail in parting. Maya tried to translate the topic and asked Aisha about what she was talking about at the moment when she only went into the room. It worked. Aisha cheered over and said that Raka promised her that tomorrow she and Delcane and Maya would go somewhere. Maya did not think that the Duke would really suit them. She thought tiredly, "When will I have a day off?" The next day, Raka worked hard behind the door of his office. He was focused in a good mood. The wit thought that the Duke behaved strangely. Last time, he looked at his hands all day, and now, periodically looking up from work, Raka approached the window and just looked at it for some time. Then he decided to ask if the Duke felt uncomfortable. Because of something, he seemed to be in the clouds. Raka told him that everything was in order and recommended the latter to better concentrate on his own work. And after a moment, he widely noticed that the Duke had taken up his own and once again got up from the table. The brunette went to the window. The assistant already had the feeling that the Duke seemed to fall in love with his window frame. The wit suggested that, perhaps, there was simply something outside the window that bothered his master. The guy also looked out the window and asked what the Duke looked at. Raka replied that his reflection in the glass. If it were true, it would be a very strange occupation. The Duke ordered the breath to leave and stop asking him. It turned out that Raka all this time was looking for Maya with the Gemini in the window. Why did they still not go for a walk? No time had passed. The guy finally saw them through the window. They finally were about to go for a walk, as they said. The young man warned his assistant that he would go out for a while. He was going to follow the nanny and twins. The wit excitedly reminded the master that after lunch he had a meeting with Count Bursman. But Raka said that he had a more urgent case, so let him convey the wit that the Count does not come today. The assistant, and after that, did not let him go. He asked the Duke, and what to do with the rest of the work. Raka said that the rest of the work was easy, so he could cope with her a wide width. And if he doesn't want to, let him put it aside. After that, the brown-haired man did not object to Reiki, because finally, he also had a well-deserved weekend. Meanwhile, Maya and the Gemini went together to Slitsa. The girl was there for the first time. It was the largest trading street in the empire. It was just incredible, very beautiful. Before Maya, the architecture was admired as it should, as Aisha had already dragged her to some desired place. The girl pointed to a store called Tardy. He looked so luxurious, as if everything was very expensive there. The nanny thought that it was better for them not to go into such expensive stores, because Raka gave them not so much money. Delcane also noticed this, telling Aisha that the daughter-in-law did not have money to go to such a solid store. Maya became a little embarrassing, but she honestly admitted that she took very little money with her. But not wanting to upset children, she immediately began to look around and look with her eyes where to buy a cheap dessert for children. She saw a stall with sweet cotton wool not far away and realized that it was exactly what she needed. Maya suggested Aisha this option, but the girl was damaged and said that her mood deteriorated and she did not want to. But Delcana immediately said that he would be glad of everything that the daughter-in-law would buy for him, which reassured Maya and pleased. Then she stroked the boy on the head and said that in this case, she would only buy a sweet cotton wool Delcane, since Aisha refused. Aisha did not like it, and then she gave up. She blurted out, which will also be glad to everything that her sister will buy for her. Then Maya calmed down completely. The girl, just in case, clarified whether they really agree to sweet cotton wool. Aisha pointed her finger at the dessert and clarified whether this strange thing was called sweet cotton. Maya confirmed. It turned out that the children had never tried her before, but Aisha really liked the sweet name of this dessert. While they made their way to the stall with sweet cotton, Aisha managed to stop in front of a few interesting shelves.